Chapter 1400. Water Wheel. When Cheng Yaojin heard Li Zixuan say that he wanted to build a water wheel, he couldn't help but look confused. After thinking for a moment, he couldn't help but say, "Xiao Xian, you're right. A water wheel should be a rollover, right?" Hearing Cheng Yaojin's words, Li Zixuan realized that he had said something wrong. According to his memory, there was no such thing as a water wheel. In most situations, people called it a rollover, so he quickly corrected himself. Yes, Uncle Cheng, it's a rollover." According to folklore, the earliest water-drawing tool used by the ancient people was a tangerine. Simply put, it was a strong wooden pole with a wooden bucket hanging on one end and a heavy object similar to weights hanging on the other end. It used the lever principle that Chinese people had discovered many years earlier than foreigners to achieve the goal of saving the energy needed to draw water. The water wheel in China's official written records was only created in the Eastern Han Dynasty. At the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, Emperor Ling of Han ordered Bailan to build a rollover, which already had basic equipment such as wheels, axles, grooves, and plates. It was also said that during the Three Kingdoms period, the people of Wei and Ma also made rollover. The Wei Lu said, Ma Jun lived in the capital. He had land for a garden, but there was no water to fill it. It was a rollover, so the children turned to fill it with water. However, at that time, the water wheel was only a basic concept and some basic structures derived from it, and its driving method was relatively backward. This was the first stage of the development of the water wheel in China, and it was also the most primitive stage. Cheng Yaojin couldn't help but shake his head and say, "Xiao Xian, the rollover can be used to water a small number of fields, but for thousands of acres of land, it's not as convenient as using manpower to carry water." Qin Xiong nodded and said, "Jijie is right. This water wheel is indeed not suitable for large-scale irrigation. It's time-consuming and laborious. Instead of that, it's better to carry water." Li Zixuan thought for a moment and knew that Cheng Yaojin and Qin Xiong must have misunderstood, so he smiled and said, "Uncle Cheng, Uncle Qin, the rollover I'm talking about is different from the previous ones. It doesn't need to be driven by human power, but directly depends on the flow of water. Its speed is also much faster than the previous rollovers. It can run day and night, so instead of calling it a rollover, I'm more used to calling it a water wheel." Hearing this, Cheng Yaojin's eyes widened to the size of a copper bell. He said in surprise, "There is such a water wheel that relies on the flow of water to move? Little Xian, are you trying to trick this old man?" Qin Xiong and Niu Jindao were also in disbelief. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "How would I dare to deceive you? After the morning assembly, I will return to Yunshan and draw the blueprint. In a few days, the workshop will be able to build the water wheel I mentioned." The water wheel that he was talking about that could use the flow of water to move on its own was known as the roller wheel in history. It first originated at the end of the Tang Dynasty and flourished during the Song Dynasty. The rollover wheel was invented during the Eastern Han Dynasty and the Three Kingdoms era. It had been stagnant at the stage of human power until the appearance of the roller wheel. This situation was then broken. It used water power and animal power to move the wheels, freeing human power from the pedals of the rollover wheel. The roller wheel not only had a better irrigation efficiency than the previous rollover wheel, but it also saved manpower and material resources. It was loved by the later generations of emperors and was popularized in daily life. Li Zixuan didn't plan to copy the roller wheel from history. He would optimize and modify the original foundation, adding gears, bearings, and other transmission mechanisms to further optimize the operation efficiency and friction loss of the water wheel. Now, his workshop definitely had the technology and ability to do so. At this time, Li Zixuan couldn't help but admire his own foresight. When he first transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty, the first thing he did was to establish the Strange Taste Pavilion workshop. Now, most of his glory and disgrace were related to this workshop. Ha! Good. When the time comes, little Xian, when you make this kind of water wheel, you must tell me. This old man has lived for more than half of his life, but I have never seen a water wheel that can move on its own, ha ha. Cheng Yaojin laughed excitedly. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Of course, of course. They chatted and laughed along the way and soon arrived at the palace. The 50,000 soldiers of the left guard naturally couldn't enter the palace. When they were at Vermilion Bird Avenue, they had already turned to the main camp. As for the important generals in the army, they followed Li Er into the palace to receive their rewards. Li Zixuan didn't have anything to do with this. He just stood there and dozed off. He faintly heard that Yuqi Jingda, Chai Xiao, and the others were being rewarded with money, silk, satin, and food. Then, he quickly fell asleep. Yes, he fell asleep standing up. After being in the imperial court for so long, Li Zixuan had long mastered the skill of sleeping while standing up. Speaking of this skill, he had learned it from Cheng Yaojin. Old Cheng had been in the imperial court for more than a decade, so he was much better at this than Li Zixuan. Reporting to Your Majesty, Left Minister Wei has returned to the capital. He is now outside Taiji Palace. In the midst of his drowsiness, a sharp voice came from inside the palace, waking Li Zixuan up from his sleep. When he came back to his senses, he couldn't help but say in his heart, Wei Jing is back. No, I can't sleep anymore. If Wei Yaojin sees this, he will definitely accuse this young master. Li Zixuan hurriedly wiped the corner of his mouth and pretended to be full of energy as he stood up straight. It was said that dozing off in the imperial court was something that almost every official had done before. Thus, when everyone saw it, they would turn a blind eye to it. However, Wei Jing, who couldn't tolerate sand in his eyes, was different. If it was light, he would wake you up. If it was heavy, he would scold you for being disrespectful in front of the emperor. Li Zixuan's position in the imperial court was very close to Wei Jing. There were only two people in between them. He didn't know if Li Er had purposely arranged this position for him or not, but he didn't allow him to change positions without permission. Thus, when he heard that Wei Yaojin was back, Li Zixuan's sleepiness immediately disappeared. Oh? Beloved Minister Wei is back? Quickly, invite him in. Li Er, who was sitting high up, said with a face full of joy. However, no one knew what old Li was thinking. After all, Wei Yaojin was back and often pressured Li Er. Whenever old Li did something wrong, Wei Yaojin would immediately scold him. Understood. The eunuch cupped his hands and left. After a while, Wei Jing strode in with a travel-worn face. He bowed to Li Er and said, Your Majesty, I, Wei Jing, greet you. To be honest, ever since he left Chang, and in the first month, and went to Hunan province, Wei Jing had missed Li Er a little. This was not a gay relationship, but a relationship between an emperor and an official. Old Wei respected and loved Old Li from the bottom of his heart. He hoped that Old Li could become a famous emperor. Especially after the rebellion in Hunan province and the narrow escape, Wei Jing was even more eager to return to the imperial court. Thus, once the matter in Hunan province was settled, he rushed back without stopping. Beloved Minister Wei, you may rise. Thank you for your hard work in Hunan province. Li Er hurriedly said, emotionally. Although he was annoyed by Wei Jing's scolding in the past, Li Er felt a little uncomfortable after Wei Jing was away from the imperial court for so long. Now that Wei Jing was back, Li Er didn't know why, but he actually heaved a sigh of relief. Thank you, Your Majesty. Wei Jing stood up and said, Your Majesty, during the first month, I was ordered to send Cui Junchuo back to Zhengzhou and to rectify the illegal activities of the Cui family over the years. During this time, Cui Junchuo didn't want her family members to be investigated by me, so she secretly rebelled with the Cui family of Bowling and the Jing family of Xingyang. I escaped death with the help of Lu Rengui, who was in charge of the army in Bianzhou. After that, your Majesty sent the army to Guan City to quell the rebellion. After the rebels were executed, I stayed in Hunan province to pacify the people and investigate the officials who colluded with the Chui family. A total of 33 officials were found, and all the evidence was conclusive. These people have now been detained in the Supreme Court's prison and await your Majesty's judgment. I was fortunate to have completed my mission in Hunan province, and I'm here today to present the imperial edict. At the end of his speech, Wei Jing bowed and cupped his hands. Li Er nodded and said in a deep voice, Minister Wei's journey was extremely difficult and dangerous. In order to clean up the Hunan province, you risked your life many times. I'm very touched. Thanks to your efforts, Hunan province can be restored to its former glory. I've decided to confer you the title of Junior Guardian of the Crown Prince, Jinziguang Lu Daifu, and grant you 300 households. Wei Jing bowed and said, Thank you, Your Majesty. However, when I was on my way back, I saw that many farmlands had encountered a very serious drought. Many people were carrying water from the river to irrigate the land. I'm sure Your Majesty will order the Ministry of Revenue to transfer money and the Ministry of Works to send craftsmen to help the people dredge the ditches and alleviate the drought. When Li Er heard this, he frowned and said, I have long known about this matter. In a few days, the imperial court will allocate manpower, material, and financial resources to order the local government to help the people dredge the ditches and ensure that the low-lying farmland can be irrigated by the river. Wei Jing heaved a sigh of relief and cupped his hands. Your Majesty is wise. In this way, the drought can be alleviated to the greatest extent and the losses of the people can be reduced. Obviously, Wei Jing also understood that with the current level of drought, it was impossible to take care of all the farmlands. Some of the farmlands that could not be reached by the ditches could only rely on the people to carry water themselves. He, who said that the farmlands on higher ground can't be irrigated. From what I know, the Marquis of Yong knows how to build a self-moving overturned cart to carry water from the lower ground to the higher ground. Qing Yaojin couldn't help but show off at this time. Today's morning court was all about other people being rewarded. Qing Yaojin already felt that it was quite boring. Now that he finally found such an opportunity to show off, how could he miss it? In the early days of the Tang Empire, the imperial court was still relatively free. Qing Yaojin said something without any reason, and no one blamed him. Instead, everyone looked at him with shining eyes. Old Qing had jumped from a role of soy sauce in today's morning court to the main character. Li Zishuan couldn't help but cover his face. In his heart, he thought that old Qing was really impatient. The water wheel hasn't even been built yet, and you're already bragging about it. Isn't it a little too early to brag? Hai Duke Lu, is what you said true? Is there really such a thing as a self-moving overturned cart that can carry water? Wei Jing looked at Qing Yaojin excitedly and asked. Although Qing Yaojin always bickered with him on normal days, Wei Jing still knew to put aside those personal feelings when it came to matters of right and wrong. Pfft. Qing Yaojin sneered and said proudly, I, old Qing, speak with every word. Do you think I'll deceive you, Wei Xuanqing? If you don't believe me, you can ask the Marquis of Yong. This attitude, it was as if he was the one who wanted to build the water wheel. Wei Jing couldn't be bothered to bicker with this old fellow. He quickly turned his gaze to Li Zishuan. At this moment, Li Er finally couldn't help but ask, Marquis Yong, and is what Qing Jijie said just now true? Li Zishuan knew that he couldn't continue to keep a low profile. He walked out of the group of civil officials and bowed. Your Majesty, there is indeed such a thing. This subject calls this overturned cart a water wheel. It doesn't need a person to step on the pedals. It relies completely on water power to move. However, these are just some ideas in this subject's mind. It hasn't been built yet. Your Majesty, please give this subject a few days. By then, we will know if this method is feasible. Hearing Li Zishuan say it with such certainty, all the officials couldn't help but be shocked. Wei Jing was so excited that his entire body trembled. He muttered, "There's hope. There's hope for the commoners now." Li Er was also shocked. He looked at Li Zishuan with a burning gaze and said, "Water wheel? Good. In the next few days, I order you to focus on developing this water wheel. If you do well, I will reward you handsomely." This subject obeys the decree. Li Zishuan bowed and said. After saying this, he couldn't help but look at Qing Yaojin with hidden bitterness. He had only casually mentioned the improved water wheel in the morning. Whether it could be built successfully, even he didn't know. However, now that Qing Yaojin had done this, the entire court knew about it. No matter what, he had to build the water wheel and build it successfully. After the morning court, he came out of the palace. He didn't have time to chat with Qing Yaojin, Qin Xiong, and the other elders. Wei Jing urged Li Zishuan to quickly go back and develop the water wheel. Marquis Yong, the drought is like fire. Please, for the sake of the commoners, quickly build the water wheel you mentioned. Otherwise, who knows how many commoners will have no harvest this year. This old man's heart hurts to see it. Although Wei Jing didn't explicitly urge Li Zishuan to scram back to Yun Mountain, his resentful gaze still made Li Zishuan feel uncomfortable. Therefore, Li Zishuan quickly cupped his hands in response and immediately rode back to Yun Mountain. Although Wei Jing sometimes liked to be stubborn, this old man was thinking of the commoners from the bottom of his heart. It was also because of this that Li Zishuan respected Wei Jing. "Husband, you're back?" Han Yushi saw that Li Zishuan had returned and hurriedly went up to him and said, "Wife, your husband has some things to do. I won't be eating lunch. Don't let anyone disturb me in the study." Li Zishuan said to his wife and hurriedly went to the study. He had to quickly draw up the blueprint of the improved water wheel. Not only did Wei Jing know that the drought was like fire, he also knew. Chapter 1401. The water wheel is actually like a big turntable. You can use a wooden pole as the turntable's skeleton, or you can use steel. The edge of the turntable is equipped with a scraper and a water bucket. When the water hits the scraper, it drives the turntable to rotate. When the turntable rotates, the water bucket fills with water and is lifted up section by section with the rotation of the water wheel. When it reaches the top of the water wheel, the water bucket rotates due to gravity, and the water in it will be poured into the water trough above the water wheel. This cycle completes the process of filling and transporting water. Among them, the direction of the water bucket is very important. It must be against the direction of the water flow. Only in this way can the water be filled and lifted to a high place. In addition, in the main wheel of the water wheel, we have to use our workshop's unique roller bearings to reduce the friction and increase the efficiency of transporting water. Of course, for the stagnant water that doesn't flow, we can add a gear transmission mechanism and use animal power to drive the wheel. In short, no matter what method, it's much more convenient than the previous manual overturning of the water wheel. That afternoon, Li Zishuan brought the completed drawings to the workshop of the Strange Taste Pavilion. Yan Xiaoning, Faubert, Mo Huai, and Mo Chue all rushed over when they heard the news. Li Zishuan spread out the drawings and explained the structure and operating principle of the water wheel in detail to everyone. Wonderful work of art! It's really a wonderful work of art! In this way, as long as there's water in the river, the water wheel can carry the water to the bank day and night. Moreover, if there are a few of these water wheels side by side on a section of the river, the speed of carrying water is definitely enough to irrigate thousands of acres of fertile land in a short period of time. After listening, Mo Huai imagined the scene of the water wheel operating in his mind. In the end, he couldn't help but stroke his beard and exclaim in admiration. "That's right. Compared to the manual overturning of the water wheel in the past, this water wheel can automatically carry water as long as it's placed on the river surface. Not only is it convenient and labor-saving, but it can also produce a lot of water. We can use this to transport the water to the ditch. In this way, we won't have to be afraid of drought anymore. Faubert couldn't help but nod in agreement. Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Everyone is right. With this water wheel and the ditch, we can water the farmland on a large scale. Tomorrow, I will ask County Magistrate He to hurry up and use cement to renovate all the canals in Lantian County. Lantian County has a dam as a guarantee, so we can directly release water from the reservoir into the canals. As for the villages in the north of Lantian County, because the terrain is much higher than here, we can use water wheels to carry the water over." The topography of Lantian County was that the north side was higher than the south side, and the west side was higher than the east side. The Ba River was a river that flowed from the northwest direction into the southeast direction of the Yellow River. Plum Village and the Han family manor, which were close to the Ba River, could directly draw a canal from the vicinity of the dam to ensure that all of the farmland could be irrigated. However, for a manor like the Yu family manor, which was close to the north, wanting to use a canal to draw the water from the Ba River was tantamount to wishful thinking. They could only rely on a water wheel to carry the water from the south side of the canal to the north. Using cement to repair the ditch? Little Xian, did I hear wrongly? When Yan Xiaoning heard this, he couldn't help but widen his eyes in disbelief. At this time, Faubert, Mo Huai, and Mo Chui were also looking at Li Zishuan in surprise. They guessed that Li Zishuan had accidentally said something wrong just now. Li Zishuan nodded and said, "Yes, that's right. It's to use cement to renovate the ditch. Firstly, this kind of ditch built with cement can reduce the loss of water during the process of water flow. Secondly, compared to the previous mud ditches, cement ditches are more convenient to maintain. There's no need to dredge them every year. This saves manpower and material resources. Compared to the little bit of cement used, it can be said that it's too cost-effective." Yan Xiaoning nodded thoughtfully and said, "That's true, but such a luxurious method can only be used in Lantian County. When building canals in other places, they only needed to hire some workers to do some work. It wasn't like Li Zishuan, who not only had to pay for the wages, but also the cement materials. All these efforts are definitely worth it," Li Zishuan said with a smile, then looked at Faubert and said, "Faubert, you've seen this blueprint. Are there any difficulties in the process?" Faubert thought for a while, then shook his head and said, "There's no difficulty. Some of the techniques used in it are ready-made in the workshop. If I can't make it even after looking at the blueprint, then I'll have no place to show my face. Young master, don't worry. The workshop will make the water wheel as soon as possible, and then we can immediately test it." Li Zishuan nodded. With the workshop's current level of technology, making the water wheel was indeed not difficult. He smiled and said, "That's good. It's been hard on you guys recently. The drought is like fire. The sooner we make the water wheel, the less the people will suffer. Young Master Yamacho, don't worry. We'll do our best." Faubert, Mo Huai, and Yan Xiaoning all knew the severity of the matter, so they cupped their fists and said solemnly. Li Zishuan nodded, said goodbye to everyone, and left the workshop. It was already evening when they left the workshop. Outside, people were still watering the field. In this era, water projects were far less developed than in his previous life. If there were no officials from the county government presiding over a major project like the renovation of canals, no one would do it. Those abandoned canals, under the erosion of rain over the years, would collapse and become blocked again. It was very troublesome to clean them up. It was basically the same amount of work as digging a new canal. This was one of the reasons why Li Zishuan insisted on renovating all the canals in Lantian County with cement. "Yo, it's young master." Coincidentally, not long after they left the workshop, they bumped into Hu Hanyun, who was carrying a bucket of water. Ever since Han Lijing became the landlord in Lan Province, Hu Hanyun became the new village chief of the Han family manor. Old Hu was a man who valued friendship. When the world was in chaos, he fled to the Han family manor with his wife. Many of the villagers in the manor helped him. Now that he was the village chief of the Han family manor, he was even more cautious and conscientious. He didn't dare to slack off for even a day. Whenever a family in the manor encountered a problem, he was always the first to solve it. Naturally, the villagers in the Han family manor had a good impression of Hu Hanyun. "Uncle Hu, did you just come back from watering the canals?" Li Zixuan asked with a smile. Hu Hanyun wiped his sweat and said with a grin, "Isn't that so? The weather has been dry recently, and the nutrient bowl in the ground has just been planted. If I don't water it, the white pile seeds won't survive even if they germinate. This thing is very precious." It wasn't just old Hu. Recently, all the citizens of Lantian County were busy watering the freshly planted white fold seed flowers. Li Zixuan had spent a lot of money to buy these flowers, so no one paid any attention to them. It could be said that the white fold seed flowers in this one mu of land were more valuable than all the crops in each household. If they could get a good harvest, they wouldn't have to worry about food for a whole year. Li Zixuan understood. He thought for a while and said, "Uncle Hu, later tell the villagers that the canals in our county will be dredged soon. When the time comes, they won't have to carry water from so far away to water the fields." Hu Hanyun's eyes widened in surprise and said, "Young master, is what you said true? The county is going to help us dredge the canals?" Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Of course it's true. In a few days, the county government will organize the workers to start the construction. When the time comes, if the farmers are free, they can help. Not only can they speed up the progress, they can also get a salary." Old Hu quickly waved his hand and said, "Hey! Young master, what do you mean by wages? In any case, they're helping us to build our own canals, so it's only right for us to contribute. Don't worry, when the time comes, you don't have to tell them. As long as the farmers have the motivation, they will go and help. We don't have other things, but we still have the strength." The people in ancient times were simple and honest. As long as the officials were willing to organize everyone to dredge the canals, they would be willing to do it even if they didn't want to be paid. Besides, the ordinary people in ancient times usually had corvée labor. If they did these things, they could reduce part of their labor and help water their own field. Why not? Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Uncle Hu, there will be some salary, but it won't be too much. After all, the amount of money that the county yamen can give in advance is limited. However, at the very least, there will be food. When the time comes, you can have the farmers call for those half-grown children who can carry shovels and eat a lot. After helping out, they will be able to eat their fill, right?" What he was doing was not considered child labor. In ancient times, 13 or 14 years old was considered an adult. Moreover, at this time, the children of ordinary families were generally not fat. This was because it was impossible for them to eat until they burped every meal. It was not a bad idea to let them take advantage of the opportunity to eat until they were full for a few more days. Hu Hanyun grinned and said, "Yes, yes, yes. Those little bastards, they just squat in the manor every day and don't do anything serious. Let them come and help out, it'll be a good way to temper their temperament." Li Zixuan smiled noncommittally and chatted with Hu Hanyun for a while before taking his leave. It was already late, so he didn't plan to go to the county town. He went straight back to Yunshan. The next morning, after Li Zixuan finished his practice and breakfast, he went down the mountain and headed to Lantian County. Pang Feiji had to prepare for his wedding, so Li Zixuan gave him a few days of leave. So, he didn't come with him today. Now, the two brothers beside Li Zixuan were Lu Feng and Lu Yun. Li Zixuan was now the marquis of 10,000 households, so he had to have guards following him when he went out. It wasn't for safety reasons, but it was also for the sake of his reputation. Speaking of which, these two brothers were from the Imperial Guard. They were originally sent by Li Zixuan to help Li Zixuan search for ores and to be his personal guards. However, Li Zixuan was busy with the vanadium mine, the dam, and the drought. He didn't know what ores to mine next, so he didn't give them any missions to search for ores. So, they became temporary guards. After entering Lantian County, Li Zixuan went straight to the county government. When he passed by another street beside the county government, Li Zixuan inadvertently saw a luxurious mansion with the words, Marquis of Yong, unwritten on it. He couldn't help but be startled. Then, he realized that this should be his new mansion in Lantian County. Speaking of which, he was ashamed. Previously, he had heard from County Magistrate that the new mansion had been built, but until now, he had not had the time to go in and take a look. After that, the decorations and furniture in the new mansion were all handled by his parents. Apart from paying for it, it could be said that he had not made any contribution to the new mansion at all. However, just by looking at it from the outside, this new mansion was much more imposing than the one in Chang'an. At the very least, the 2 stone lions at the entrance were very imposing. Li Zixuan liked it very much. Yunshan Villa was a small building with a modern style. It was suitable for a short stay for a vacation. This mansion in Lantian County could be considered an official marquis mansion. This had a symbolic meaning. It symbolized that the owner of Lantian County lived here. Therefore, the architectural style of this mansion was authentic Tang-style architecture. After living in Yunshan Villa for half a year, it might be nice to change back to a Tang Dynasty-style mansion, Li Zixuan thought to himself. After he finished explaining things to the county government, he should go to the new mansion to take a look. He didn't aspire to be a virtuous person like Yu the Great. He couldn't do something like passing by the house 3 times without entering it. Speaking of which, if this luxurious mansion was placed in modern times, it would be worth at least a few billion, right? However, Li Zixuan only spent less than 10,000 strings of coins to build such a luxurious mansion. Just thinking about it made him feel like he was dreaming. Even so, there would probably be people who would say that he was extravagant. However, to Li Zixuan, he had earned so much money. Couldn't he enjoy it and let his family live better? Moreover, he wasn't the kind of person who was heartless. He had used his own money to make the people rich. He couldn't even count how many examples he had. Marquis, why don't we go in and have a seat? Old Master and Old Madam should be awake by now. Lu Feng suggested after seeing Li Zixuan staring at the mansion for a long time. Li Zixuan came back to his senses and shook his head. Business is more important. Let's go to the county government first. After saying that, he urged Big White to go to the county government. When they arrived at the county government, Li Zixuan didn't ask anyone to announce his arrival. Instead, he went straight to the back office. County magistrate he happened to be going through official documents at the back office. Seeing Li Zixuan suddenly arrive, he was shocked. Could it be that he had done something wrong recently? Could it be that Li Zixuan had come to question him personally? Suppressing the doubts in his heart, county magistrate he hurriedly came forward and greeted. Greetings, Marquis. Li Zixuan nodded and walked into the hall. Then, he asked, County magistrate the weather has been dry recently. Many crops in the fields have withered. Do you know about this? County magistrate he was shocked. Only now did he understand Li Zixuan's intentions. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Marquis, I already know about this. 2 days ago, I had already discussed a solution with the county deputy and official registrar. We have decided to gather all the villagers and dredge the ditches. Then, we will divert the water from the dam that you built. I had planned to look for you today to discuss this matter, but I didn't expect you to come to the county government so soon. Chapter 1402. Although only the first signs of the Guangzhou drought had appeared, the county yamen of Lantian County still had not come up with a response policy. This made Li Zixuan somewhat dissatisfied. No matter what was said, the officials of the county yamen were definitely lazy in their work. Li Zishuan had personally come to the Lantian County Yamen today with the intention of denouncing them. However, when he heard county magistrate he say that the Yamen was already preparing for the drought, his expression softened. Building the canals and opening up the reservoirs is a must. It's best for the Yamen to start recruiting workers in the next 2 days and use cement to refurbish all the main canals in the county. As for the branch canals, they only need to be cleared. The wages paid to the commoners will be allocated by the county government, and the cement required will be distributed by the workshop of the Strange Interest Pavilion. Using cement to refurbish the canals? County magistrate he was shocked when he heard this. He asked doubtfully, Marquis, isn't this a little too extravagant? Also, there's no need for this. Li Zishuan frowned and said, why is there no need for this? Now that there's a shortage of water, the cement canals can reduce the loss of water during the flow of water. Also, it'll be easier to clean them up every year. Don't tell me you want to mobilize the workers to clean the canals every year? County magistrate he swallowed his saliva and said, No, I don't want to. Marquis is wise. Although he understood that Li Zishuan was speaking the truth, he still couldn't accept such an extravagant matter from the bottom of his heart. After all, the cement produced by the workshop was still a priceless item. Merchants outside couldn't buy it even if they wanted to. Li Zishuan seemed to have seen through county magistrate he's thoughts. He said, the cement produced by the workshop hasn't been sold, so we've accumulated a lot of stock in the past half a year. County magistrate you don't have to worry about the problem of insufficient cement. After the drought is resolved, the Yamen can organize people to refurbish the roads in Lantian County. Since we plan to make Lantian County a commercial city second only to Chang'an City, we can't lose our dignity. Right now we are only repairing the road. In the future, when the number of people in the city increases, we will have to expand this county. But that's all for later. The most important thing now is to repair the cement ditch as soon as possible. The roads in Lantian County were all bluestone roads. However, even though they were both bluestone roads, the roads in Lantian County were not as smooth as the roads in Chang'an City. Li Zishuan had been dissatisfied with this for a long time. As the saying goes, if you want to be rich, you have to first fix the roads. He was able to fix the cement road from Yunshan to Chang'an City. Of course, he had to fix the roads in Lantian County. County magistrate he was shocked by Li Zishuan's plans to repair roads and expand the city. But at the same time, he was also fascinated. If he could really turn Lantian County into a commercial city second only to Chang'an, then he, the county magistrate, would be famous all over the world. How could he be an exception to this rule? Gulp. County magistrate he swallowed his saliva and said, Marquis is right. I will do my best to assist Marquis. Li Zishuan smiled and nodded. He asked again, how is the scale of business in our city compared to the past? Speaking of this, county magistrate he was suddenly energized. He said excitedly, it's flourishing. Marquis, the business in Lantian County is flourishing. Where there are people, there are business opportunities. In these few months, the Football League not only attracted a large number of spectators, it also attracted a large number of businessmen to open shops, tea houses, inns, and pubs in Lantian County. The number of shops and pubs is 3 times more than before. The business tax collected by the county government every month is almost 5 to 10 times of the previous years. In the long run, the business tax in our county will exceed the land tax. That's just around the corner. These are all within expectations. What I want to ask is, the business in Lantian County is developing so rapidly. Are there any new problems in the middle? Li Zishuan nodded and asked. Football was one of the most charming sports. Lantian County was hosting a portion of the Football League this time. To be able to attract so many businessmen was within Li Zishuan's expectations. However, this method could be described as pulling up seedlings to help them grow. It was inevitable that there would be hidden dangers in the middle. Hearing Li Zixuan's question, County Magistrate He's face showed a hint of difficulty. After hesitating for a while, he opened his mouth and said, "Marquis, if you want to talk about problems, it's not that there aren't any. The most prominent problem is that as the number of shops in our county increases, there are more and more hooligans who seek protection fees from the businessmen. Many merchants would report to the county yamen after being blackmailed. The yamen's constables would arrest the ruffians, but the merchants who reported to the yamen would often be retaliated against. The most serious case was a silk shop that suddenly caught fire one night. After this matter spread, very few of the merchants came to report it to the authorities." Li Zixuan heard this and his face turned cold. He said sternly, "There was such a thing? Why didn't you tell me before?" This County Magistrate he opened his mouth to say something, but in the end, he lowered his head and didn't say anything. Li Zixuan said angrily, "This is County Magistrate He's dereliction of duty. Those hooligans want to use these little tricks to instill fear in the hearts of the businessmen, so as to achieve their goal of extorting protection fees. If the county government doesn't do anything, won't it encourage those hooligans' arrogance? In the long run, our Lantian County's business environment will get worse and worse, and our reputation will even spread far and wide. Now there is the Football League to help us attract businessmen, but what about after the Football League ends? What do you plan to use to keep them?" This was the first time County Magistrate he saw Li Zixuan lose his temper. His face couldn't help but turn pale. After Li Zixuan finished speaking, he hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Marquis is right. I will do my best to clean up this bunch of hooligans in the city in the future. However, those people will run away as soon as they see the wind blowing and the grass blowing. If we want to catch them, we will need a lot of manpower. Our county government's 3 groups of bailiffs only add up to about 50 people. If you don't have enough manpower, then go and recruit more. Lantian County is no longer the small county it used to be. County Magistrate you have to broaden your horizons. The 3 groups of bailiffs in the county government must have at least 100 people. You must ensure the safety of the city, and resolutely protect the safety of the people and the businessmen." Li Zixuan mercilessly interrupted County Magistrate and said, "The bailiffs were different from the army. If Li Zixuan wanted to recruit more people, he could do so. He didn't have to worry about anyone impeaching him." Yes, I will do as you say in a moment." County Magistrate he hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Yes." Li Zixuan turned around and clasped his hands behind his back and said, "In addition, this Marquis also intends to set up a Department of Commerce in the county government. It will specialize in dealing with the tax collection of the businessmen and ordinary dispute. This Marquis' purpose in setting up the Department of Commerce is to tell those businessmen that they can enjoy the same treatment as ordinary people in Lantian County. They will not be discriminated against. From now on, Lantian County would only be divided into the ranks of soldiers and commoners. Although the children of businessmen can't participate in the imperial examinations, they can still attend the county school in the county. In the future, they can even enter Yanhuang College. Before this, the businessmen of Lantian County were helplessly bullied by the local ruffians. However, County Magistrate he didn't do his best to help. The reason for this was because of the low status of the businessmen in this era. The reason why the businessmen didn't dare to report to the officials, other than being afraid of being retaliated by the local ruffians, another important reason was that they felt that even if they reported to the officials wouldn't take their matter to heart. They might as well spend money to avoid disaster. Li Zixuan wanted to change this situation. However, he didn't radically raise the status of the businessmen to a very high level. At least, it wasn't as high as it was in the modern era. He only wanted to divide the businessmen into commoners. This way, the opposition he received would be much smaller. County Magistrate he's eyes widened when he heard this. He couldn't help but say, "Marquis, you can't do this. I'm afraid this is very inappropriate." What's inappropriate about it? This Marquis respects the rights of the scholars and didn't give any special treatment to the businessmen. I only unified the businessmen and craftsmen in Lantion County into commoners. Who would object? This Department of Commerce, you first send someone to take care of it. If your people don't do a good job, then this Marquis will personally send someone to take care of it. However, when the time comes, this Department of Commerce won't listen to you. Li Zishuan said very unyieldingly. If a superior always treated his subordinates with a pleasant countenance, then it would cause the subordinates to lose respect and slack off on their own work. County magistrate he was like this now. Li Zishuan wanted to take this opportunity to give him a good beating. Seeing Li Zishuan being so firm and decisive, county magistrate he couldn't refute. He could only cup his hands and say, "This official obeys and will do my best to help Marquis manage this Department of Commerce." Li Zishuan's expression cleared up a little. He nodded and said, "In this world there are gains and losses. The businessmen have a good and stable business environment, so they have to pay the corresponding taxes to the officials. In the past, the business tax ratio of 1 out of 30 was not acceptable. After the Department of Commerce is established, all the shops in Lantion County must report their profits every month to the Department of Commerce. They will pay 1 out of 6 of the profits for the month. The Department of Commerce will regularly check the projects of the shops in the city. Those who falsify accounts, underreport tax, or even evade taxes will be severely punished." Li Zishuan felt more than once that the business tax ratio in the ancient times was too low. 1 out of 30. In the modern times, the business tax would be at least 17%, right? No matter what, the agricultural tax was higher than the business tax. This was definitely an abnormal phenomenon. Why did those poor farmers have to pay more taxes than the rich merchants? This was not fair. In the past, Li Zishuan wasn't in his position and didn't meddle in politics. Now that he was given a county, he naturally had the ability and the obligation to meddle in this matter. When county magistrate he heard 1 out of 6, he instantly lost his calm. This was equivalent to raising the business tax by 5 times. How could this be tolerated? He quickly said, "Marquis, you must not. With such a heavy business tax, how would those merchants be willing to do business in Lantion County?" Li Zishuan said decisively, "This hasn't been tried yet." "How do you know that the merchants won't be willing, county magistrate he? The protection fees they pay to the local ruffians every month is definitely much higher than this amount. As long as the county can help them get rid of these local ruffians and ensure that they have a stable business environment, they will definitely be willing to accept this business tax ratio. All in all, if they do business in Lantion County, not only will they be treated like normal people, they will also not be harassed by the local ruffians. Moreover, their children will be able to receive good education from the county's schools. These benefits are definitely not something they can enjoy in other counties, right? Apart from that, the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce's goods will be given priority to the merchants in Lantion County. As such, I don't believe that there will be merchants who won't be willing to accept this tax ratio." Hearing Li Zishuan's analysis, county magistrate he couldn't help but feel a little moved. In all fairness, if he was a merchant himself, he might also be willing to do business in Lantion County. It couldn't be said that the business tax was high, but it could only be said that the business tax in the past was too low. Even if it was increased by 5 times, it still wasn't much. Compared to the many benefits he would receive, it was completely worth it. Marquis's words are reasonable. Then this official will quickly recruit the citizens to repair the canals and establish a Department of Commerce. We will also severely punish the local ruffians in the city and create a good business environment for the merchants." After thinking for a moment, county magistrate he cupped his hands and said. Li Zishuan nodded and said, The matter of repairing the canals must be done quickly. It would be best if it can be started within the next 2 days. After the canals are completed, the dam will be opened to release the water. As for the village in the north of Lantion County, this Marquis will think of a way to move the water there. Yes, Marquis. Although county magistrate, he didn't know how Li Zishuan would move the water to the north, but since Li Zishuan didn't say anything, he didn't dare to take the initiative to ask. He could only bow his hands and say yes. When Li Zishuan saw that he had explained everything, he turned around and was about to leave. Before he left, he lightly instructed, "The local ruffians in the city are the cancer of Lantion County. You must be merciless when dealing with them. If there are any ruffians who openly resist the authorities, you just need to send someone to inform me. This Marquis will bring people to destroy them." Although it was a light sentence, it was full of murderous intent. County Magistrate He's heart trembled. Only then did he remember that this fair-skinned, scholarly young man in front of him was a ruthless person who started a massacre at Snake Spirit Mountain. He couldn't help but silently mourn for the ruffians in the city. He thought to himself, "You'd better obediently surrender. Otherwise, what awaits you is complete destruction." After leaving the county office, Li Zishuan directly went to the new Marquis mansion in the east. The Marquis mansion and the county office were not far apart. They were only separated by a square, so Li Zishuan quickly arrived at the Marquis mansion. That's right. What's the name of the square where the Marquis mansion is located? Walking to the door, Li Zishuan suddenly had a question in his heart and couldn't help but ask. Since he was going to move back in the future, he should at least know his home address, right? He naturally asked the two brothers behind him, Lu Feng and Lu Yun. Hearing this, Lu Feng couldn't help but laugh. "Haha, Marquis, this square was originally called Yunfu Square, but I heard that county magistrate he changed the name of this square a month ago. It should be called Yong'an Square now." "Oh? There's such a thing?" Li Zishuan couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Although he didn't like his subordinates to flatter him, he had to say that county magistrate He's flattery was good. It was simply a slap to his heart. This name was changed well. Yunfu Square, Maternity Square, haha. Yong'an Square sounds better than Yunfu Square. Li Zishuan smiled and then walked towards the Marquis mansion. Chapter 1403. Hey, stop right there. This is the Marquis Yong'an Marquis mansion. Ordinary people are not allowed to enter without permission. If you are looking for my family's Marquis, please go to Cloud Mountain, Lantion County, Yong'an Lane, in front of the Marquis's mansion. Just as Li Zishuan was about to step into the mansion, a manservant suddenly appeared from the side of the porch and stopped him. That manservant had good eyesight. He saw that although Li Zishuan's clothes were not extremely luxurious, his extraordinary aura was clearly not something an ordinary family's young master could possess. Therefore, he was more courteous in his words. Li Zishuan saw that this manservant was unfamiliar and knew that he should be a new manservant that his parents had hired. Speaking of which, this Marquis's mansion occupied 5 to 6 times the size of the original mansion in Chang'an City. To take care of such a large house, they definitely had to hire more servants. Haha, manservant, as a servant of the Marquis's mansion, don't you recognize our family's Marquis? You really don't know who the real god is. Before Li Zishuan could speak, Lu Feng behind him could not help but laugh. He also took into account that this manservant's words were more courteous, so he did not speak harshly. "Ah, you are Marquis." That manservant was not stupid. He did not think that anyone would dare to impersonate a Marquis in front of the Marquis's mansion. After all, Li Zishuan's parents and many servants of the original Li mansion of Chang'an City were still living in this mansion. If someone were to impersonate Li Zishuan here, wouldn't they be exposed immediately? Therefore, after hearing Lu Feng's words, he could not help but widen his eyes. He was very frightened and hurriedly bowed to Li Zixuan. Marquis, please forgive me. I am also new here and did not recognize the real Marquis. I deserve to die. Li Zixuan wouldn't be so petty as to argue with a servant in his residence. He waved his hand and said, "It's fine. As the saying goes, the ignorant are not guilty. Besides, you didn't do anything wrong just now. By the way, what's your name?" When the servant saw that Li Zixuan wasn't angry, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He stood up and said, "Marquis, my name is Wang Bail. I'm the 9th in my family, so everyone calls me Wang Jiu. Marquis, you can also call me that in the future." Li Zixuan nodded, then patted Wang Bail's shoulder and said, By lo, do your best. Don't think that being a concierge means that you will be useless for your whole life. Being a concierge is very knowledgeable. The previous 2 concierges in the Ho residence can now help me take charge. They are your role models. Li Zixuan was talking about San Bao and Ah Fu. These 2 were originally concierges in the Li residence. Now, one was helping Li Zixuan open a mine in the Shu lands, and the other was assisting Faubert in the workshop. They were the role models of the entire Li residence. Cough cough. However, the servants in the Ho residence were most envious of Xiao He and Xiao Shi. After all, although these 2 were also servants, they could serve Li Zixuan all day long. It was really enviable. However, this was only the envy of the maids in the residence. The servants were still envious of San Bao and Ah Fu. Hearing Li Zixuan's words, Wang Bail's heart almost jumped out. He felt that the blood in his body was already burning. He bowed excitedly and said, "Thank you, Marquis, for your advice. This little one will definitely do my best, and become someone useful to Marquis like Brother San Bao and Brother Ah Fu." Li Zixuan nodded and did not say anything else. He walked straight in. "Xian'er, I heard that the servant guarding the residence stopped you just now?" The new Marquis residence occupied a larger area, and its interior was more luxurious. Among them, there were artificial mountains, ponds, pavilions, terraces, and pagodas that complemented each other. Now that it was the middle of summer, the residence's garden was full of flowers and lush trees. It was very beautiful. After taking a tour around the residence, Li Zixuan accompanied the elders of the family to a pavilion in the garden as they sipped divine tea and chatted. "Mother, this is just a small matter. How can you worry about it? There are many new servants in the residence. It's normal that they don't know me. They'll know me after a few more times." Li Zixuan was embarrassed when he heard this and quickly said, "Speaking of which, he was stopped by his own servants when he returned home. If this were to spread, he would probably be laughed at." Madame Li looked at her son reproachfully and said with a smile, You still have the nerve to say that? Isn't it because you're busy with work? The new residence has been built for so long, but you don't even come back to take a look. The new residence is several times bigger than the previous one. Naturally, it needs more servants. Who can you blame if those new servants don't know you? Mother is right. Your son will definitely come back and stay here more often in the future," Li Zixuan quickly said. Madame Li shook her head and said, "I don't mean to force you. Yanhuang College is where you put all your effort into. It's natural for you to stay here and take care of it. You just have to find time to come back and take a look. My son's ambition is to benefit the tens of thousands of people in Lantian County. As your mother, I can't be your stumbling block." Although Li Zixuan was moved by his mother's understanding, he could not bear to see the 2 elders guarding this huge but empty residence all day long. What was the difference between them and those old people who had empty nests? So he quickly said, "Mother, look at what you're saying. Yunshan is only half an hour away from Lantian County. Your son can stay here and take care of Yanhuang College. When I'm done with my work, your son and Yushi will move back here." He was now not only the Yamacho of Yanhuang College, but also the master of tens of thousands of people in Lantian County. He had to consider not only Yanhuang College, but also the livelihood of these tens of thousands of people. For example, the drought this time and the sudden growth of merchants in the city attracted local ruffians. He needed to deal with them personally. His subordinates did not have the courage to do so, so staying in the city and commanding was the long-term plan. Madame Li was pleasantly surprised when she heard this. She said, "Xian is what you said true?" Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Of course it's true." "Oh, that's right. Mother, where did you buy all the new servants in the residence from? Are they reliable?" Li Zixuan didn't have the heart to harm others, but he had to be on guard against others. Li Zixuan didn't have the heart to harm others, but he had to be on guard against so many new servants. After all, his current status was special. It was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be some people with ulterior motives mixed in. There were too many secrets in the Li residence that outsiders wanted to know. When Madame Li heard this, she replied, "These servants were naturally bought from a broker house. Mother doesn't dare to use servants sent by other families. Xian don't worry, these servants are all clean. Furthermore, they've all been inspected by your father and grandfather. Xian you should trust their judgment of people, right?" Li Zixuan was not the only one who knew to be wary of servants. Madame Li and the others naturally knew. After all, the Li residence stored Li Zixuan's drawings. Any one of them was worth thousands of gold outside. It was hard to guarantee that servants with bad moral conduct would not be tempted. Hearing this, Li Zixuan quickly nodded and said, "Since father and grandfather are personally checking, then I'm naturally relieved." Father Li and Li Zixuan were people who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Their judgment of people was naturally very accurate. In the past, the servants in the Li residence were personally selected by Li Jingma. Although Li Zixuan had used bean sprouts as bait to catch a few traitors, there were a total of 100 to 200 servants in the Li residence. Only a few traitors appeared. This was enough to show that Li Jingma's judgment of people was very accurate. Li Jingma snorted, proudly, as if to say, "At least you're sensible." Then Xian when will you and Yushi move back to live? Madame Li smiled and asked again. Li Zixuan pondered for a moment and replied, "Mother, it should only be around 10 days. After I've settled the matters at Yunshan, I'll move back to live with father and mother." If that's the case, why don't you quickly give birth to a chubby grandson for your mother? Then your mother won't be so bored and nag you every day. At this time, Father Li, who was sitting at the side, opened his mouth and joked. Hearing this, Madame Yi couldn't help but echo, "That's right, that's right. Little Xian, your grandmother also hopes to see my great-grandson in her lifetime." Although Madame Li didn't say anything, the eager look in her eyes exposed her thoughts. Obviously, she did think so in her heart. Li Zixuan's face suddenly turned red. He thought to himself that his father's words were ambiguous. What did he mean by giving birth to a chubby grandson for them? Did he have the ability to do that? Ahem. Father, mother, grandmother, Yushi and I are still young. Yushi's body is also weak. To a woman, giving birth to a child is a very harmful thing. Let's wait until she's a little stronger before we talk about giving birth. Hearing Li Zixuan's words, Madame Li frowned slightly but didn't continue to persuade him. After all, she was also a woman. She knew that giving birth to a child was like walking through the gates of hell for a woman. Before giving birth, she should take good care of her body. After a moment of silence, Madame Li smiled and said, "Then when you move back to live, I'll make delicious food for you and Yushi every day to nourish your bodies." No matter how thick-skinned Li Zixuan was, when he heard this from his mother, he couldn't help but feel embarrassed. He quickly got up and said, "Mother, I'm very healthy. I don't need any nourishment. Ahem, I still have things to do, so I'll go back to Yunshan first. We'll move back in a few days." After saying that, before Madame Li could react, Li Zishuan hurriedly fled, leaving behind Madame Li's reproachful voice in the air. This child, is he shy? I didn't say anything wrong. Giving birth to a child isn't a matter for one person. It's only right that both of you should nourish your bodies. In the afternoon of the same day, the Lantian County Yaman's recruitment notice for laborers to repair the cement ditch was posted at all the important junctions inside and outside the county. It ordered all the village heads to report the number of laborers they had recruited to the county Yaman before the sky turned dark the next day. From the day after tomorrow, the canal repair project would officially begin. Those who participated in the canal repair project would not only be exempted from 3 months of corvée labor, they would also receive a salary of 5 copper coins and a full lunch at noon. Any citizen above the age of 13 and below the age of 45 who was healthy could sign up. When the news spread out, the whole county was shocked. There was especially little rain this year. Many farmlands had dried up and cracked. All signs indicated that this year would be a year of drought. To the ancient people, drought meant a reduction in grain production. A reduction in grain production meant death. A lot of people would starve to death. Therefore, although it was very difficult to carry water and water the fields, there were still many commoners who would go to the river to carry buckets of water. Now that the county government was willing to organize the workers to repair the canal, even if the commoners didn't want to be paid, they would still be extremely happy. Moreover, not only would they be paid, but they would also be provided with food. Furthermore, they would be able to reduce 3 months of corvée labor. Although the Tang Empire had greatly reduced the amount of corvée labor for the commoners, this was something that no one would complain about, right? Therefore, the commoners who saw the notice, regardless of whether they were male or female, old or young, as long as they had some free time recently, all flocked to the village managers' homes and asked to sign up for the canal repair project. If there wasn't an age limit of 45 years old, it was likely that all the old men and women in their 50s and 60s would rush to sign up. Everyone understood that once the cement ditch was built, they would no longer need to carry buckets of water from the river. All the crops in their fields would be saved. However, there were a few villages where the commoners weren't so enthusiastic. For example, the Yu family village in the northernmost part of Lantian County. Village manager, even if the canal is built to our Yu family village, will the water from the Ba River be able to flow over? When the time comes, won't the fields in our village continue to be dry? That's right. Zhong Lijing. Our Yu family village's terrain is much higher than the Ba River. Instead of repairing the canal, we might as well continue to carry water and water the fields. If we can save some fields, then we can save some. It's better than repairing the canal. That's right. That's right. The nutrient bowls in my family's fields haven't been watered yet. I third you can't go to repair the canal. In the Yu family village, there were many villagers gathered in the courtyard of Zhong Lijing's house. The villagers were all talking at once. In short, everyone wasn't very enthusiastic about repairing the canal. My fellow villagers, please be quiet and listen to me. At this moment, Yu Dehang held a notice and walked to the front of the crowd. She shouted loudly. It's Elementary Scholar Yu. Elementary Scholar Yu, if you have anything to say, just say it. We're all listening. That's right. Elementary Scholar Yu, you're well-read, so you can help us make some suggestions. The commoners respected Yu Dehang, who was a scholar, very much, so they quickly quieted down. When Yu Dehang saw this, she opened her mouth and said, "Fellow villagers, look at this notice. It is clearly written that after the canal is repaired, it can guarantee that the water from the Ba River will irrigate all the farmlands in Lantian County, so that the people of Lantian County will not suffer from drought. What does this mean? It means that the land in our Yu family village can also be nourished by the water from the Ba River." This notice came from the Lantian County Yaman. Such a huge project definitely wasn't decided by county magistrate he alone. Marquis must also know about it. However, since this notice was released, what does it mean? It means that this is Marquis's guarantee to us. You may not believe that the water from the Ba River can flow to the Yu family village, but don't you believe in Marquis? Regardless of whether you believe it or not, I, Yu Dehang, definitely believe in Marquis. Chapter 1404. Yu Family Manor. After Yu Dehang finished speaking, the commoners couldn't help but fall silent. Li Zixuan, this name was currently like a god in Lantian County, and no one disrespected him. Some people even set up a longevity monument for Li Zixuan and prayed for Li Zixuan every day. They prayed that Li Zixuan could live to 100 or 1,000 years old, so that they and their descendants could also enjoy happiness. Therefore, when Yu Dehang mentioned Li Zixuan, the commoners no longer dared to make a ruckus like before. Scholar Yu, Marquis has done us a great favor, so of course we believe in Marquis. However, no matter how capable Marquis is, he can't move the water from the Ba River to our Yu family manor, right? A villager couldn't help but say loudly at this time. He had voiced out the thoughts of the majority of the people. Therefore, as soon as his voice fell, countless people immediately echoed his word. That's right. Moving the water from the river is the means of an immortal. Even if Marquis is skilled in both civil and martial arts, it's impossible for him to do such a thing. Maybe Marquis didn't know about this notice, or maybe Marquis didn't consider the terrain here. That's right. We believe in Marquis, but it doesn't mean that we believe that someone can move the water from the Ba River to the Yu family manor. Instead of wasting time building canals, it's better to water the land from the well. Zhong Lijing was a little helpless when he saw this, so he couldn't help but look at Yu Dehang. Although he also didn't believe it in his heart, he still chose to firmly believe in Li Zixuan. However, he couldn't convince others to believe that Li Zixuan could bring the water over like him. He was only a villager who relied on the sky to make a living. In terms of eloquence, he was far inferior to a scholar like Yu Dehang. Yu Dehang didn't disappoint Zhong Lijing. At this time, he shouted, "Fellow villagers, please listen to Dehang again. What you said just now is not wrong. Moving the river and transporting water is indeed an immortal's method. But have you forgotten Marquis's identity? Marquis is a descendant of an immortal. He can ascend to the heavens and enter the earth. You guys know about the immortal lamp from before, right? Also, Marquis grew vegetables in the winter. You should all know about that, right? Which of these things did you think was possible? But what was the result? These impossible things were all accomplished by Marquis. Although I don't know what method Marquis will use to transport the water to the Yu residence, I believe that Marquis will be able to do it. Gentlemen, think about it. If we don't use manpower to clear the canals, and only rely on the water from the wells to irrigate the land, how many mu of land can each family save? But what if we dig a canal and Marquis brings the water here? Then the drought in all the land in our village can be alleviated. Besides, the county yamen asked everyone to help repair the canals. Not only did they give you wages, but they also reduced your corvée labor by 3 months. Where else can you find such a good thing? Taking a step back, if you still don't believe that Marquis can transport the water to the Yu residence, then each family can only send 1 or 2 people to repair the canals, and the rest of you can continue to irrigate the land with water. But no matter what, the canals of the Yu residence must be repaired this time. Because this time, the county yamen provided cement to help us repair the canals, so we must not miss such a good opportunity. At this time, Yu Lijing also nodded and said, "Scholar Yu is right. This time, the county is mobilizing all the people in the county to repair the canals. The people of the Yu residence must not be left behind. After all, cement is a rare thing. It is our good fortune that the county yamen is willing to provide it to us to repair the canals. Marquis is also taking care of us behind the scenes. This kind of treatment is something that people in other counties can't even dream of, so we must know what's good for us. Therefore, each family must send at least 1 or 2 young and strong laborers to help repair the canals. This is a matter that will benefit future generations, so each family must contribute. After he finished speaking, the villagers couldn't help but talk in private. After a while, everyone finally began to agree with him. Scholar Yu is right. Marquis is the son of an immortal, so he must have the means of an immortal to transport the water from the Ba River to our Yu residence. I, Yu Dashan, firmly believe in Marquis. My family is willing to send 3 people to help repair the canals. I, Yu Qing, am also willing to believe in Marquis. My family is willing to send 4 people. My family is willing to send 3 people. Suddenly, the villagers' enthusiasm for repairing the cement canals surged, and they all eagerly asked Zhong Lijing to sign up. Seeing this, Zhong Lijing finally let out a sigh of relief and began to call the villagers to line up and register. At night, the Lantian County Yamen was brightly lit. The officials in charge of the County Yamen all worked overtime at the request of County Magistrate He. During the day, Li Zixuan came to question him, and scared County Magistrate He out of his wits. Therefore, when it came to the construction of the canals, he was even more vigilant and didn't dare to slack off. Li Zixuan wanted to build the canals as soon as possible, so he directly set the start date for the day after tomorrow. However, the construction of the canals in the county was a huge project, so it had to be done in sections and at many places at the same time. This way, the canals in the county could be dredged in the shortest time possible. The specific tasks assigned to each village had to be arranged in advance. The officials in charge of the county yamen were currently working through the night to come up with a plan. Deputy County Magistrate Meng, tomorrow you will lead 20 yamen runners to visit each village separately and measure the length of each village's main canals. Tomorrow night, we will calculate the amount of work and materials used. In the office at the back of the yamen, County Magistrate He ordered with a serious face. There was no room for discussion in his words. If it was in the past, Deputy County Magistrate Meng would probably have some doubts. However, today, Li Zixuan personally went to the County Yamen and talked to County Magistrate He. Everyone in the County Yamen knew about it. According to the Yamen runners who were guarding the door, the conversation was not pleasant. This was worth thinking about carefully. Obviously, Li Zixuan was dissatisfied with the work of the County Yamen recently. Therefore, Deputy County Magistrate Meng replied without hesitation, "Yes, County Magistrate. I will bring people out of the county early tomorrow morning." "Okay." County Magistrate He nodded and said to Constable Sun, "Constable Sun, tomorrow you will assist Deputy County Magistrate Meng in completing the measurement work. Order the yamen runners to not slack off. Also, the number of yamen runners in the 3 shifts is too small. We need to recruit more." Marquis said that Lantian County is no longer what it used to be. If we want to maintain law and order in the county, the number of yamen runners in the 3 shifts must be at least 100. Librarian Hu, Constable Sun, you have to recruit a group of yamen runners with good character and martial arts foundation as soon as possible. After passing the assessment, they will be hired directly. This is also an important task for you in the near future. Marquis is very dissatisfied with the current law and order of Lantian County, especially the local ruffians in the market. The county yamen must punish them severely. Librarian Hu and Constable Sun were shocked when they heard this. They quickly replied, "Yes, County Magistrate." At the same time, Constable Sun couldn't help but feel happy. Once the number of yamen runners in the county yamen increased, his power would increase in the future. After all, the number of underlings under him would increase. Also, Marquis also intends to set up a Department of Commerce to deal with the disputes and taxation of merchants. For now, the county yamen will be in charge. Deputy County Magistrate Wang, Registrar Zhang, you have to recruit a group of bookkeeping experts as soon as possible. It would be best if they are bookkeeping experts who are proficient in modern mathematics. Add them to your subordinates and wait for orders at any time. County magistrate. He looked at the other two and instructed. The other two middle-aged men in the public office quickly replied, "Yes, county magistrate." County magistrate. He nodded and said to everyone, "The most urgent matter now is the construction of the cement ditch. Marquis attaches great importance to this. Of course, this also concerns the livelihood of tens of thousands of people. Everyone must work together to build the ditch as soon as possible." Yes, everyone agreed. At this moment, Deputy County Magistrate Meng suddenly couldn't help but ask, "County Magistrate, the village in the north of Lantian County is on higher ground. How do we channel the water from the Ba River through the ditch?" As soon as he said that, everyone looked at County Magistrate. Obviously, everyone had the same question in their minds, but they didn't dare to ask. County Magistrate. He frowned and replied, "Marquis has his own way of doing this. We don't have to worry about it. Alright, go and do your work. Once you're done, go back and rest." "Yes, County Magistrate." Early the next morning, Deputy County Magistrate Meng of the County Yamen led more than 20 Yamen runners out of the city. There were more than 50 villages in Lantian County. Even if they split up, it would probably be evening by the time they finished their work. At the same time, the news of the Lantian County Yamen organizing the villagers to build the ditch with cement had already spread to the surrounding counties of Chang'an. The people in other counties who were suffering from drought were naturally envious of Lantian County. Although the announcement of the construction of the ditch was issued by the County Yamen of Lantian County, everyone knew that it was definitely Li Zishuan's idea behind it. For a moment, countless people were praying that one day, their villages would become Li Zishuan's fiefdom. When the imperial court heard the news, it was impossible for them to remain indifferent. The Ministry of Revenue and Ministry of Works both sent people to the various counties with funds from the imperial court to urge the county yamen to start dredging the ditch. Although it wasn't a cement ditch, it could still alleviate the drought to a large extent with the water wheel that Li Zishuan was currently developing. At the same time, in the new workshop of Strange Taste Pavilion, it was a busy scene. Since Li Zishuan handed the water wheel blueprint to Faubert yesterday, Faubert, Mo Huai, Yen Xiaoning, and the rest discussed and divided the task of building the water wheel into many small parts and distributed them to the various departments of the workshop. After that, all the craftsmen in the workshop focused on building the water wheel. The scale of the workshop today was no longer what it used to be. The number of craftsmen was more than 10 times more than before. With thousands of people working on the same thing at the same time, how terrifying the progress was. At noon, a giant wheel that was 4 to 5 feet tall had been erected in the open space in the front yard of the workshop. It looked just like a Ferris wheel. However, this wasn't the kind of Ferris wheel that was only for viewing and entertainment. This was a giant water wheel that could save the people from disaster. The exterior of the wheel was made of wood. The reason why it wasn't made of steel was mainly to reduce the weight. When the time came, it could spin faster under the influence of the water flow. Of course, the center of the wheel was made of steel. The transmission part of it was made of ball bearings and gear mechanisms. There were many supports scattered around the giant wheel. The craftsmen were busy putting them together. Li Zishuan had just walked into the workshop's yard when he saw this scene. He had been worried about the progress of the water wheel's construction. Although he knew in his heart that the water wheel couldn't be completed in a day or two, he couldn't help but come over after lunch. The craftsmen in the yard were busy with their work at the moment. For a moment, no one noticed Li Zishuan coming over. Li Zishuan looked at the giant wheel in the yard and couldn't help but open his mouth in shock. The progress of the water wheel's construction was far beyond his imagination. "Hey, young master, you're here?" Faubert had just squatted on the ground to instruct a carpenter. When he got up, he saw Li Zishuan and greeted him. Li Zishuan nodded. Suddenly, he noticed Faubert's unconcealable tiredness, so he quickly asked with concern, Faubert, did you stay up late again last night? He. No worries. No worries. Young master, don't worry. I just slept a few hours later. No worries. The construction of the water wheel is the most important thing. Faubert heard the deep concern in Li Zishuan's words and couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He quickly waved his hand and said. Li Zishuan frowned and said, Faubert, no matter how urgent the water wheel is, it's not as important as your health. Go back and rest. I'll help you keep an eye on this place. The academy had a midterm examination these 2 days. The Lantian county government had also just been warned. Since Li Zishuan had nothing to do these 2 days, he thought it would be good for him to stay in the workshop. Faubert quickly shook his head and said, Young master, you're the head of a county and have a lot of work to do. How can you stay in the workshop and waste your time? Don't worry, my body is still strong. When I'm tired, I'll naturally go and rest. Speaking of this, he suddenly pointed to the giant wheel in the courtyard and said, Young master, you came at the right time. Take a look at the main wheel of the water wheel. What do you think of the craftsman? Seeing Faubert's unyielding attitude, Li Zishuan couldn't persuade him any more. Hearing this, he looked at the giant wheel again. He saw that there were protruding scrapers on the wheel's circumference at intervals. These were used to block the water. When the water hit the scrapers, it would impact the wheel. On top of the scrapers, there was a thick iron pipe placed at an angle of 45 degrees. This was the water bucket, a device used to hold water during the rotation of the wheel. After looking at it carefully for a while, Li Zishuan nodded and said, Very good. This is basically the model of the water wheel in my mind. The progress of the construction is really beyond my expectations. Faubert, you've worked hard. Faubert laughed and said, Ha ha. It's not hard for me. This is the result of the joint efforts of all the craftsmen in the workshop. I estimate that the water wheel can be installed on the Ba River tomorrow. When the time comes, the corresponding water trough will be built. It should be ready for trial operation the day after tomorrow. Li Zishuan heard this and said excitedly, When the time comes, we'll move the river and build a heavenly waterway. Chapter 1405. 2 in 1 chapter. The source of each village's main channel must be at the highest point. This way, the water can flow to all the fields in the village. When it was close to evening, Li Zishuan made another trip to the county yamen. He saw that county magistrate. He was organizing the officials of the county yamen to discuss the plan to build the canal. He sat down and listened quietly. After he finished listening, he stood and pointed at a map hanging in the hall. In his previous life, he was a village boy. His village would also pump water from the river to the canal during summer, so he had some experience in this area. Moreover, when he was young, he would often run to the canal in front of the door to play with water. For this reason, he was beaten quite a lot. However, at that time, they used a water pump to pump water. In this era, where could he get a water pump? He knew the principle of a water pump. If you asked him to make one, he would do it. However, the water pump needed to be powered by electricity or diesel. He couldn't provide these two sources of energy now. Therefore, after thinking about it, the best way was to use a water wheel. Marquis, if the source of each village's main channel is placed at the highest point, how can the water be brought up? County magistrate, he heard this and finally couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. This question was also what everyone in the room wanted to ask but didn't dare to ask. Li Zishuan smiled faintly and said, I won't hide it from everyone. This marquis has ordered people to create a type of overturned cart that can rely on water or animal power to transport water. This marquis calls it a water wheel. It can carry water from a low place to a high place day and night without stopping. Moreover, this thing has already taken initial shape. After the test passes the day after tomorrow, it can be quickly mass-produced. At that time, we can use it to guide the water from the Ba River Dam to various villages. What? There is such a magical tool in this world? This is incredible! Hearing this, County Magistrate he couldn't help but exclaim. The rest of the people were also shocked. Although everyone felt that it was unbelievable, no one doubted the truth of Li Zishuan's words. The main reason was that Li Zishuan had created too many miracles in the past. In their hearts, he had already become an omnipotent god. Li Zishuan said faintly, "There's nothing strange about that. You just need to follow my instructions and plan the channels for each village. As for the manufacturing and placement of the water wheel, I will order the craftsmen to do it." "Yes, Marquis." Everyone hurriedly cupped their hands and accepted the order. Li Zishuan pondered for a moment before instructing. In addition, recruit 3 groups of Yamen runners as soon as possible. After the canal is completed, the county Yamen must begin to regulate the public security in the city square. At that time, the Department of Commerce will also be established. This concerns the development of Lantian County, so you must pay attention to it. Here. Imperial Palace, Suite Du Hall. Any news from Li Zishuan's side? Didn't he say that he wanted to build a water wheel? What's the progress now? After reviewing the memorials, Li Er leaned on the dragon couch and asked tiredly. Your Majesty, according to what I know, the Duke of Yong had already handed the blueprint to the workshop yesterday. And this afternoon, the workshop had already built the skeleton of the water wheel. It seems that they will begin testing the water the day after tomorrow. Zhao Song knew that Li Er had been worried about the drought recently, so he asked the servants to pay more attention to the progress of the water wheel. Hence, he could answer Li Er's question immediately. So fast? Li Er raised his eyebrows in surprise. Zhao Song smiled faintly and said, Your Majesty may not know, but the Duke of Yong has used extremely generous terms to recruit many excellent craftsmen. The new workshop at Strange Taste Pavilion is more than 10 times larger than before. There are thousands of craftsmen, and even the works supervisor and the Ministry of Works cannot compare to it. Hence, if the Duke of Yong wants to build something, his speed will definitely be the fastest in the world. Li Er couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. With this kid doing this, those craftsmen in the works supervisor will probably run to him after they resign from their positions? Isn't this stealing my talents? Although he said that, Li Er's tone didn't sound like he was angry. Zhao Song couldn't help but laugh. The Duke of Yong's ambition is to bring engineering to greater heights. Hence, the scale of his workshop can be so huge. Your Majesty is broad-minded and can accommodate hundreds of rivers. Hence, the Duke of Yong's knowledge can be put to good use. Li Er shook his head and didn't say anything. However, the slight smile at the corner of his mouth proved that Zhao Song's flattery was very effective on old Li. In the afternoon after tomorrow, if the water wheel can really be tested, remember to remind me. I will also go and take a look. After a moment of silence, Li Er suddenly spoke. Yes, Your Majesty. The next day, early morning, under the orders of County Magistrate the Yamen runners of Lantian County were mobilized in full force to each village to direct the construction of the cement ditch. As for the tasks assigned to each village, they had already been allocated last night. Today, the Yamen runners brought along their task books and blueprint. Each of them was in charge of a village. Of course, it wasn't just the Yamen runners. Li Zishuan also sent craftsmen to the villages to guide the villagers in the construction of the cement ditch. Before the sun rose, the villagers carried their shovels and under the guidance of the Yamen runners and craftsmen, they began to dredge the ditch. That afternoon, by the side of the Ba River Dam, they began to build tall supports one after another. Each support was more than 10 feet tall. On this row of supports, there was a wooden rectangular water trough that was about 3 feet wide. The craftsman climbed up the ladder and knocked on it. Pring-pring sounds were incessant. Young master, the joints of the wooden boards on the water trough have all been smeared with Tang oil. This can ensure that there won't be any leakage. After today, the Tang oil should dry up. Tomorrow we will begin the experiment. When the time comes, we will open the gate on the east side of the dam and place the water wheel on the river below the dam. When the time comes, we will see if the water wheel can lift the water from the river to a position above our heads. Faubert personally brought Li Zixuan to inspect the construction site. While inspecting, he also explained to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan nodded his head and praised, Faubert, you have thought of the details very thoroughly. Otherwise, with only my blueprints, I wouldn't be able to create a truly practical water wheel. This was the truth. Working with an experienced craftsman could often save a lot of trouble. Even if you didn't think of some problems and never mention them, the craftsman would be able to help you notice them. This was experience and a habit that had been cultivated over many years. Faubert laughed and said, "Hee. Young master, what are you talking about? If it weren't for your idea and blueprints, this water wheel definitely wouldn't exist now. This old man has been a craftsman all my life. I only have more experience than young master, but when it comes to invention, young master has left this old man behind by more than 10 streets. Ha. We are a family, so let's not boast about each other. Faubert, the sun is still quite strong. You should go back and rest first. Mr. Mo and I will take care of this place. There won't be any problems." Li Zixuan felt that the weather was a little hot, so he comforted Faubert. Faubert was a person who refused to accept old age. Hearing this, he quickly retorted, "Young master, this old man isn't that weak. It's just basking in the sun, nothing will happen." Li Zixuan directly interrupted Faubert and said, "Faubert, you don't have to insist. If you get a heatstroke at your age, then my sin will be too great." Mo Huai also chimed in, "Brother Fu Yamacho is right. This weather is very hot. Your health is important. It's better to go back and rest quickly." "All right then. Young master, Brother Mo, if there's anything, just send someone to find this old man." Faubert couldn't persuade him, and could only leave alone. Li Zixuan and Mo Huai played the role of supervisors and began to patrol the construction site by the murky river. "Mr. Mo, I heard that you have been leading the physics teachers of the academy to study the construction of the hydropower station on the dam recently. How is the progress now?" Li Zixuan suddenly thought of something and asked. The Murky River Hydropower Station was Yenwang College's first trump card project. Its practical and symbolic significance was very important. Li Zixuan had also said that all physics, mathematics, and chemistry teachers were encouraged to actively participate. On the one hand, it was to verify what they had learned. On the other hand, they could also get the corresponding contribution points that could be used to evaluate their titles in the future. In the past few days, apart from assisting Faubert in building the water wheel, Mo Huai spent most of his time on the research of the hydropower station. It could be said that he was conscientious and made Li Zixuan, a Yamacho, feel a little ashamed. When Mo Huai heard Li Zixuan's question, he thought for a moment and replied, "Yamacho, we have already determined the location of the generator and the layout of the control lines. When the water wheel is finished and the dam is opened, we plan to install the generator and the generator blades to see if it can generate electricity. In this way, we won't waste the water in the dam, and we can also test if our generator can work normally." Li Zixuan nodded and said, "That's good too. After all, real knowledge comes from practice. If we don't do it ourselves, we will never know whether we are right or wrong. If your generator can generate electricity normally, you need to verify it with an electrical appliance. Before that, I will help you make a light bulb. All right. You still have to make transformers, electromagnetic relays, and so on. You have to start preparing for these supporting facilities now." Professional terms such as light bulb, transformer, and electromagnetic relay were all in physics textbook. Therefore, Mo Huai was not surprised by these new terms. He was surprised that Li Zixuan was going to make a light bulb. Yamacho, are you confident that you can make a light bulb now? Mo Huai was very surprised and asked in disbelief. Li Zixuan nodded and said, I have a way to make light bulbs. I originally planned to make one a while ago, but I was too busy at that time and didn't have time. Recently, I found time to make a few to test the effect. When Mo Huai heard this, he immediately said excitedly, That's great. I have only seen this thing in Yamacho's textbooks, but I have never seen the real thing. You said in the books that with this thing, there is no need to light oil lamps or candles at night, because this light bulb is dozens of times brighter than those things. Li Zixuan smiled and said, Light bulbs are indeed good things. With them, people can find real light at night, and Lantian County can become a city that never sleeps. The next day, after 2 days of hard work by the craftsmen, the water wheel, the supporting frame, the water trough, and other parts of the water wheel were finally all installed near the downstream of the Ba River Dam. Ever since the Ba River Dam was completed and the sluice gate was closed to store water, the water level of the downstream river was getting shallower by the day. Therefore, the place where the water wheel was placed was more than 1 or 2 feet above the water level. Fortunately, there was a water wheel. Otherwise, even if a ditch was dug from here, the river water would not flow out. Young master, the water wheel is in place, but the water level of the downstream river is too low, and the river water has almost no flow speed, so the water wheel is not turning. Should we open the sluice gate now and let the river flow downstream? Faubert came over at this time to ask for instructions. Li Zixuan pondered for a moment and said, It's fine. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Just open one sluice gate and test the effect first. Okay. Then this old man will give the order. Faubert responded and went down. Haha. At such an important moment, you didn't even send someone to inform me. At this time, a familiar voice came from behind Li Zixuan. Who else could it be other than Li'er? Li Zixuan quickly turned around and saw that it was not only Li'er, but also Fang Xianling, Zhangsun Wuji, Wei Jing, Qing Yaojin, Qin Qiong, Niu Jinda, and other trusted officials of Li'er. Such a scene shocked all the craftsmen at the construction site, and they all bowed to pay their respects. Greetings, Your Majesty. Li Zixuan also hurriedly saluted Li'er. Li'er first said to the craftsman, You don't have to be so courteous. Just do what you should do and pretend that you didn't see me. After that, he looked at Li Zixuan and said, All right, you can dispense with the formalities as well. Is this the water wheel you mentioned? At this time, Li'er caught a glimpse of the giant wheel standing on the lower reaches of the Ba River, and could not help but be surprised. Qing Yaojin, Wei Zheng, and other important officials also widened their eyes and stared in that direction. Your Majesty, this is the water wheel. In a while, when the sluice gate is opened and the river water flows, the water wheel will turn and the river water will be transported to the water trough above us. Li Zixuan cupped his hands and said, So high. Li'er looked up at the water trough above, and could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, he said, Then get someone to open the sluice gate. I want to see if this thing can move the river water today. Yes. Li Zixuan cupped his hands and accepted the order. Open the sluice gate. Not long after, Mo Huai's shout came from the dam, followed by a loud rumble. One of the sluice gates of the dam opened, and the river water in the dam rushed out and fell on the river downstream, causing waves of snow-white waves. As the position of the water wheel was not far from the dam, although only one sluice gate was opened, the flow of the river water was still relatively rapid where the water wheel was located. Therefore, under everyone's gaze, the giant wheel finally began to turn, and it turned faster and faster. The inverted bucket on the outside of the wheel poured out bucket after bucket of river water at the top of the wheel. Suddenly, the sound of flowing water came from the water trough. "It's out of the water! It's out of the water!" At the other end of the water trough, there were craftsmen taking care of it. Not long after, the craftsmen's cheers came from there. All the officials were shocked, and Li'er also felt incredulous. Moving the river water, this is a waterway of the heavens. It's like a miracle. Wei Zheng looked up at the water trough above his head, and muttered to himself in shock. Chapter 1406. On the bank of the Ba River. Everyone, including Li'er, was stunned when they saw the huge water wheel lifting the river water to a height of more than 10 feet. God had pity on them. If they had used manpower to lift the water, it could have been lifted that high. However, the key was that the water wheel didn't need any manpower at all. It was completely dependent on the water power to move automatically. This was a little unbelievable. After a long time, everyone recovered from their shock. Cheng Yaojin was the first to speak. "Haha! I knew that you weren't bragging, Shaoxian. You said that this water wheel could move the river water automatically, so it must be possible. Now it seems that I, Old Cheng, have the best foresight." As he spoke, Old Cheng walked up to Li Zixuan and patted the latter's shoulder fiercely. He had a smug look on his face, as if Li Zixuan was a talent he had discovered. Everyone was speechless and cursed Old Cheng for being shameless in their hearts. Li Zixuan bared his teeth. If it had been anyone else, they definitely wouldn't have been able to withstand Old Cheng's slaps. It was only because he had a strong martial arts foundation that he could withstand it. "Your Majesty is wise. This old subject congratulates Your Majesty." Just as everyone was secretly criticizing Cheng Yaojin in their hearts, Wei Zheng suddenly bowed to Li'er and said such a sentence without any reason. Li'er was instantly confused. He thought to himself, "I didn't do anything. How is this wise? Wei Zheng, who always liked to find trouble with me, could it be that he took the wrong medicine today?" "Dear Minister Wei, why do you say that?" Li'er thought for a moment and asked with a frown. Wei Zheng bowed with a serious face and said, "Your Majesty has a discerning eye. Back then, you brought the Marquis of Yong'an into the imperial court. You also allowed the Marquis of Yong'an to start engineering schools, run academies, and build workshops. It was because of Your Majesty's wise decision that there was the current Yanwang College and the current water wheel. This water wheel can support tens of thousands of people. How can this old subject not congratulate Your Majesty?" In the past, while Wei Zheng had not explicitly opposed Li Zixuan's engineering, he definitely did not support or like it. But now, in the midst of the Guanzhong drought, when the officials were helpless, Li Zixuan had used his own power and engineering to create such a marvelous and powerful water wheel. Wei Zheng couldn't help but feel gratitude toward Li Zixuan. He even had a faint, favorable impression of engineering. This good feeling was not mixed with any personal feelings. It was just a good feeling Wei Zheng had because Li Zixuan had saved millions of lives in Guanzhong. Just as Wei Zheng finished his words, the few important officials present reacted. Under Zhang Sun Wuji's lead, they bowed to Li'er and said, "Your Majesty, congratulations on obtaining such a divine item. Your Majesty, we congratulate Your Majesty on obtaining such a divine item." The water wheel on the river was still turning noisily. The officials on the shore gave their congratulations in unison and spread far and wide across the empty land by the river. Li'er looked at the water wheel and then at the surging river water at the end of the trough. He was filled with joy. There was finally a solution to the drought problem that had troubled him for a long time. Speaking of which, he had recently been planning to have the alchemists open altars to pray for rain. But now, it seemed that there was no need because the water wheel Li Zixuan had made was more reliable than praying for rain. "Haha! Officials, you should not be congratulating me, you should be congratulating the people of the world. With this water wheel, the Guangzhong drought can be easily resolved. The tens of thousands of people in Guangzhong will be spared from the torment of the drought. You should be congratulated. Li Er nodded and said with a smile. Then he looked at Li Zishuan and said in a low voice, Marquis Yong, and you should be rewarded for being able to create this kind of water wheel that can automatically move river water and resolve the Guangzhong drought. However, the most important thing now is to quickly mass-produce this water wheel. 2 days ago, I ordered all the provinces and counties in Guangzhong to immediately start dredging the canals. When the canals work with your water wheel, it will be able to completely alleviate the drought in Guangzhong. Li Zishuan raised his hands and said, This official obeys the decree. The thousands of workers in the workshop will do their best to make the water wheel day and night. In addition, this official is willing to give the blueprint of the water wheel to the court or make it public. The structure of this water wheel is not complicated. According to the blueprint, any small workshop can make it. However, the bearings and gears used in this water wheel are difficult for private workshops to make. However, they can directly buy them from Chi Chu Pavilion. This way, the provinces and counties can work together and produce enough water wheels in the shortest amount of time to resolve the drought in Guangzhong. Giving away the blueprint was a decision that Li Zishuan had made after careful consideration. Just like last year's curved plow, when it had just been made, Li Zishuan had directly given the blueprint to the court. This was because he knew that in the face of such a great drought, he could not be selfish. Li Zishuan would definitely not earn this kind of money that went against his conscience. It wasn't that he was noble, but that Li Zishuan only wanted to live in peace. Using water wheels, curved plow, and other things that the common people saw as lifesavers to earn money, Li Zishuan felt that even if he only earned one from this kind of money, he would not be at peace. There were many ways to earn money. He would definitely not earn money that made him feel uneasy. Also, even though the scale of the workshop was much larger than before, no matter how large it was only a workshop. It only had 1,000 or 2,000 workers. In a short amount of time, it could not satisfy the needs of Guangzhong for water wheels. Marquis Yong is righteous. This old man thanks Marquis Yong, and on behalf of the common people. Hearing that Li Zishuan was going to hand over the water wheel blueprint, everyone was stunned for a moment. Wei Zheng looked at Li Zishuan in surprise, then bowed and said with sincerity. Li Zishuan didn't dare to accept Wei Zheng's courtesy. He hurriedly moved aside and said, What's the matter? Why do you say this, Left Minister Wei? When one is at the top of the court, one worries about the common people. When one is far away from the Jianghu, one worries about the ruler. You and I are in the court, fighting for the common people's well-being. Is this not the right thing to do? This mere water wheel blueprint can save millions of people. What reason do I, Li Zishuan, have to keep it for myself? Only by giving it away can I live up to His Majesty's expectations. Only then can I live up to the country's salary. When one is at the top of the court, one worries about the common people. When one is far away from the Jianghu, one worries about the ruler. Hearing Li Zishuan's words, Wei Zheng could not help but be stunned. These 2 sentences were Li Zishuan's self-admonition. How was it not Wei Zheng's lifelong pursuit? At this moment, Wei Zheng realized that he seemed to have just gotten to know Li Zishuan. Just based on these 2 sentences, Li Zishuan could be considered his kindred spirit. Thinking back to the few times he had accused Li Zishuan last year, Wei Zheng could not help but feel ashamed. He cupped his hands and said, Marquis Yong is of noble character. Wei Zheng admires you. These words were said with sincerity. Li Er could not help but be surprised. So Wei Zishuan actually admired others? This was like the sun rising from the west. After looking at Wei Zheng curiously, Li Er looked at Li Zishuan and said with a gratified expression, I am very pleased that you can have this kind of awareness. Since you are willing to give away the blueprint, I will send people to send the blueprint to each county and order them to hire craftsmen and workers to build water wheels as soon as possible to alleviate the drought. Your Majesty is wise. Li Zishuan let out a sigh of relief and said, "This way, the workshop's task would be greatly reduced. They only needed to produce a small batch of water wheels for the counties around Chang, and the other counties could follow the blueprint and build water wheels according to it. As for the gears, bearings, and other parts that they could not make, they could buy them from Chitsu Pavilion or Chitsu Pavilion's branches." The second day. Yesterday's water wheel experiment was a great success and it made the headlines of Tang daily. Water wheel success, drought hope? What is a water wheel? Hey, don't you know how to read? The water wheel was a new thing made by Master Ho. It was a kind of vehicle that could automatically carry water from a low place to a high place. It was made by thousands of craftsmen in the workshop of the Fantastic House and had been tested successfully yesterday. With this, do you think the people of Tang will still be afraid of drought? Whoa! There is such a magical thing in this world? Of course. I heard that yesterday, His Majesty brought the important officials of the court to verify the functions of the water wheel. Furthermore, the Duke of Yong and has already given the blueprint of the water wheel to His Majesty. His Majesty will announce it to the world and order the various counties to build water wheels as soon as possible. What? The Duke of Yong and handed over the blueprint of the water wheel? What a fool! Those blueprints are worth tens of thousands of gold taels. Why would the Duke of Yong hand them over so easily? Bulsh *t. The Duke of Yong is an immortal. Why would he use something that can save the lives of the common people to earn money? Wang Lauer, don't force your dirty thoughts on the Duke of Yong. Be careful or we will beat you up. That's right. The Duke of Yong cares about the common people and is benevolent and righteous. Last year, he didn't earn a single copper coin from the common people and directly made the blueprint public. Wang Lauer, if you dare to speak nonsense again, we will beat you to death. The Duke of Yong is benevolent and righteous. If it's really as you say, then this old man's family's fields can be saved. That's right, that's right. May the heavens bless the Duke of Yong, and allow him to live a long life of 100 years, 1,000 years. Only this way can the common people continue to live good lives. That's right. When this old woman returns, I will erect a longevity stele for the Duke of Yong and pray for him every day. The reason Li Zishuan had the editorial department of Tang Daily spread the news of the water wheel's successful development was to calm the people's hearts and allow them to confidently resist the drought. A while ago, when the land was dry, most of the common people chose the stupidest method, carrying water to irrigate the land. Actually, that was the most instinctive behavior of people when they were in despair. Because they knew that they couldn't resist the drought, they carried the idea of saving as much of the land as possible and carried water to irrigate the land. Now, following the news of Tang Daily's successful development of the water wheel, the common people were all elated when they heard the news and rushed to spread the news. After the hopeless common people found hope, they exploded with a strong desire to survive. Especially the workers who were building the cement ditch in Lantian County, they worked even harder. Uncle Zhong, good news, very good news ah. At the entrance of the Yu family manor, Zhong Lijing was leading the villagers of the Yu family manor to dig the ditch. Yu Dehang suddenly held a newspaper and ran over in a hurry. Moreover, as she ran, she shouted excitedly. Zhong Lijing had never seen the usually refined Yu Dehang lose her composure like this. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "Dehang, what good news is there? Look at how happy you are." The villagers who were digging the ditch couldn't help but stop what they were doing at this moment. They wanted to hear what good news Yu Dehang had brought. "Uncle Zhong, it's really good news." Yu Dehang took a breath and said excitedly, Today's Tang Daily said that Marquis built a water wheel that can automatically carry water to a high place. Moreover, it was tested successfully yesterday. His Majesty was also present. Marquis said that the common people of Lantian County can use the water wheel. When the water wheel works with the canal, all the fields in our manor can be irrigated by the river. After Yu Dehang finished speaking, no one made a sound because everyone was stunned at this moment. After a long while, Zhong Lijing finally reacted. His excited voice trembled a little. He looked at Yu Dehang with trembling lips and asked, "What are you doing? There's such a magical thing in this world? Well, Dehang, you're not lying to us, right?" The rest of the people also looked at Yu Dehang eagerly. Although they felt that it was a little inconceivable, they still hoped that Yu Dehang was telling the truth. Yu Dehang spread out the newspaper and said, "Uncle Zhong, how would I dare to lie to you? What I said is true. Look, it's clearly written in this newspaper. Marquis not only wants to use the water wheel for our Lantian County, he also offered the blueprint so that all the common people in the world can use the water wheel. If you don't believe me, you can go to the bank of the Ba River and take a look. It's said that the water wheel that His Majesty saw yesterday hasn't been removed yet." Hearing Yu Dehang's solemn vow, the villagers finally believed her. "That's great. That's great. Marquis really has a way to move the water from the Ba River to our Yu family manor. The land of our manor can all be saved." Zhong Lijing was so excited that he didn't know where to put his hands. It looked like he was dancing with joy, which was quite funny. However, no one laughed at him because at this time, everyone was trembling with excitement like him. "Ha ha! I said before that since Marquis can fly into the sky and enter the earth, he must have a way to send the water from the Ba River to our Yu family manor. At that time, Uncle Dashan, you didn't believe me, but now you should believe me, right?" Yu Dehang couldn't help but laugh. Yu Dashan said with a face full of smiles, "I believe you, I believe you. From now on, I, Yu Dashan, will believe no one but Marquis. Even if Marquis says that he can climb the 9 palaces of heaven and pluck the stars and moon, I will believe him. Dashan is right. In the future, we will believe whatever Marquis says. If anyone doubts Marquis, I, Yu Cheng, will be the first to disagree." That's right, that's right. Hey, that's not right. Since Marquis can really move the water from the Ba River, then we must quickly fix the canal. Without a doubt, my wife and children will come over tomorrow to help. They don't need to be paid. Yes, yes, yes. My wife and child will also come over tomorrow to help. In an instant, there was no need for anyone to mobilize. The enthusiasm of the Yu family manor's villagers to build the canal suddenly rose to an unprecedented level. They would rather not be paid to fix the canal as soon as possible. Chapter 1407. 2 in 1 chapter. Not only the Yu family manor, but the other villagers in the northern part of Lantian County were also greatly encouraged when they learned that Li Zishuan had built a water wheel that could transport river water. Previously, the county yamen had gathered the commoners to repair the canals. Due to the higher terrain of these villages, the villagers weren't very enthusiastic about building the canals. Generally, each family only sent out 1 to 2 laborers. The rest of the people were still busy carrying water from the wells and watering the fields. However, when the commoners heard this news, their attitudes instantly changed. The villagers who were carrying water from the wells and watering the fields all put down their carrying poles and buckets and joined the army that was digging the canals. Moreover, when the county yamen counted the number of people who were willing to repair the canals, these people didn't sign up. Therefore, in theory, they wouldn't be paid for helping to repair the canals and wouldn't reduce their corvée labor. However, even so, the commoners were still willing to help repair the canals. This was because the earlier the canals were repaired, the earlier the villagers' dry fields could be saved. In comparison, the small amount of money they would receive was a small profit. At Strange Interest Pavilion's workshop, all kinds of machinery had been fully activated. Under Faubert's arrangement, the craftsmen began to work in 3 shifts. The morning shift was from 7 to 1, the middle shift was from 5 to 9, and the night shift was from 1 to 5. The craftsmen were divided into 3 teams and worked 24 hours a day in the workshop to make the water wheels. Speaking of which, this could be considered the world's first workshop with 3 shifts. Although Li Zixuan had already announced the water wheel blueprints, which of the important officials in the imperial court, such as Zhang Sun Wuji, Xiao Yu, Qing Yaojin, Yuqi Jingde, and other important officials, didn't have a few villages under them? The land of Guanzhong was dry like fire, so how could their villages be spared? They also needed a water wheel. However, most of them felt that it was troublesome to recruit craftsmen to make a water wheel according to Li Zixuan's blueprint. Moreover, they felt that the water wheels made by other craftsmen weren't as good as the ones made by the workshop. Therefore, in the end, Zhang Sun Wuji, Qing Yaojin, and the others went to Li Zixuan to make an order. As someone in the imperial court, Li Zixuan naturally understood the ways of the world. If he could help make a few water wheels, he would be able to gain a favor from the big shots in the imperial court. This was a good deal. Therefore, he accepted all the orders from the courtiers. In just one day, he received a total of more than 100 water wheels. Therefore, it was impossible for the craftsmen in the workshop to be idle. However, Li Zixuan did not mistreat the craftsmen in the workshop. First of all, the craftsman's salary was doubled this month. Secondly, the craftsmen who worked the night shift would receive an additional allowance. As a result, although the craftsmen felt that it was hard work, they were all more motivated to work. Under such a passionate atmosphere, a construction frenzy was set off in Lantian County. Tens of thousands of people and craftsmen worked tirelessly all day long. The progress of the construction of the canal was different by the day, and the workshops could make more than 10 water wheels every day. The people saw that there was hope to alleviate the drought, and their gloomy faces finally showed a smile again. Xiaoxian. Yamacho, you're here to watch the game too? That day, coincidentally, was Saturday. Qing Chumo, who had just experienced the torment of the midterm exam, bought 2 tickets and brought Yuqi Baolin to the football field in Lantian County to watch the game. He planned to let go of himself in the passionate football game. Oh no, it was to forget his troubles in the passionate football game. However, he did not expect to see Li Zixuan when he was looking for a seat in the stands, so he greeted him with a smile. Li Zixuan turned his head to look at Qing Chumo and asked subconsciously, "Oh, Virgin, you're here to watch the game too? But how did you do in the midterm exam?" It was an occupational disease. This was definitely an occupational disease. After being a teacher for a long time, he would unconsciously ask about the students' grades when he saw them. Li Zixuan promised that he would never ask these questions in the past, but now it had become a habit. It was a sin, a sin. As soon as he heard him ask about his grades, Yuqi Baolin immediately lowered his head and wanted to bury his head in the ground. This was because studying had never been Yuqi Baolin's strong point. Of course, it was definitely not Qing Chumo's strong point, but this guy's skin was thick. Qing Chumo's face did not show any signs of shame. Instead, he looked a little proud. He laughed and said, "The exam was okay. I think I'll definitely pass every subject." Li Zixuan was speechless for a moment, then he said unhappily, "Pass? Kid, is that all you want?" Qing Chumo looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. He said indifferently, "What else can I do? My dad doesn't expect me to be the top scorer. I just want to pass every subject and not embarrass him. Hey, in my opinion, our Qing family has not been good at studying for generations. My dad asked me to come to Yanwang College to study probably because he doesn't want me to be illiterate and be deceived by others. So, Xiaoxian, you can't use this to attack me." Li Zixuan was speechless. He didn't expect that Ching Chumo, this idiot, would be so clear on some key matters even though he was usually a scoundrel. This was very similar to Ching Yaojin in this aspect. You. Li Zixuan pointed at Ching Chumo, thought for a moment and said, "Forget it. I know your ambition is not here, so I won't force you. Anyway, so what if you can't read? You're still my brother. As long as I, Li Zixuan, am here, no one will dare to deceive you in this lifetime." Ching Chumo was the first friend Li Zixuan made after he transmigrated. When he was still a commoner, Ching Chumo treated him as an equal. When he encountered trouble, Ching Chumo was the first to jump out to help him. Although he was rich now, there was a saying that went, "Don't forget your friends when you're rich." Li Zixuan would never forget this friendship for the rest of his life. Haha. Xiao Xian, with your words, I, Ching Chumo, am satisfied for the rest of my life. I didn't acknowledge you as my brother for nothing. Ching Chumo heard this and his emotions surged. His face was flushed red, and he could not help but laugh out loud. Although Li Zixuan was a Yamacho in the academy and he was a student, brothers were brothers. Nothing could change that. Yuchi Baolin looked at the two men in front of him, and a trace of envy flashed in the depths of his eyes. He also wanted such brotherly affection, but he was not good at expressing his feelings. In order to prevent Li Zixuan from sensing it, he quickly lowered his head and concealed the envy in the depths of his eyes. Oh, that's right. Xiao Xian, there's a drought in Guangzhou. I heard that you've been busy getting people to build canals and water wheels. How come you're in the mood to watch a football match today? Ching Chumo suddenly asked, puzzled. Li Zixuan rolled his eyes and said unhappily, "Watch a football match? Do you think I'm as free as you to watch a football match? I'm here to choose a player." To be honest, the current level of football in Tang Dynasty was not very good. After all, it was still in its infancy. It was not on the same level as the exciting football matches of the modern era. At the beginning, it might be interesting to watch, but after watching for a while it would be boring. Therefore, Li Zixuan did not come to the stadium for a while. Today, he was here mainly to choose a national player. Choose a player? What player? Ching Chumo was even more curious when he heard this. Is Yamacho thinking of forming a football team? Yuchi Baolin could not help but ask. He had only asked subconsciously, but he did not expect Li Zixuan to nod. Baolin's guess is right. I do want to form a football team, a national team of Tang Dynasty. Now that football has become popular in Tang Dynasty, it will definitely spread to other countries in the future. When the time comes, the surrounding countries will not be able to win against Tang Dynasty in war. Perhaps they will try to regain their ground through football matches. My purpose in forming the national team of Tang Dynasty is to prepare for emergencies. Moreover, I also plan to hold a World Football Championship every few years. Every country in the world can participate. This national team of Tang Dynasty will then represent Tang Dynasty to conquer the other countries. Previously, I asked Mr. Zhang San to help me keep an eye out for some good seedlings. A few days ago, he gave me a name list. When the players on the name list have a match, I will take some time to observe their performance. If they pass, I will call them into the national team. When the time comes, it will be time for them to be used in national competitions. After all, football was developed in Tang Dynasty. No matter what, Tang Dynasty cannot lose face in this. Hearing this, Ching Chumo's eyes suddenly lit up. He said, "Hey, Xiao Xian, you are right. Football was developed in Tang Dynasty. No matter what, our football team should be the best. Oh, by the way, I heard from my father that the Crown Prince of Wanation had formed a football team and wanted to compete with Tang Dynasty. Later, because the Wanation's queen passed away, the Crown Prince of Wanation went back. Hey, if you ask me, the Crown Prince of Wanation should thank their queen for saving him. Otherwise, even if other people were not willing to compete, I, Ching Chumo, would definitely go up and beat those arrogant Wanation people. Li Zishuan sneered and said, if it were not for the fact that martial arts were not used, there would not be many teams in Tang Dynasty that could defeat the Crown Prince of Wanation's football team. Ugly bull, stop bragging. Li Zishuan had asked Jing Qianjun in private about the football team formed by the Big Brother King of Mountain Back. According to Jing Qianjun, the football team did have some skills. The tacit understanding between the players was definitely better than most of the current football teams in Tang Dynasty. Ching Chumo was obviously not convinced. He said, Xiaoxian, you are boosting the morale of others and diminishing our prestige. Wanation is just a small country. How can they have good players? If you are not convinced, you can fight again. Not to mention other teams, I don't think the Wanation people can beat the Fergana Horse team in Liangzhou, let alone the Fergana Tiger team and the Wind Thunder team. Li Zishuan smiled and did not make any meaningless rebuttal. Seeing that Li Zishuan was ignoring him, Ching Chumo rolled his eyes and said, Xiaoxian, how many players do you like now? 6 or 7. What's wrong? Li Zishuan replied lightly. Ching Chumo rubbed his hands and said with a flattering smile, hee. Xiaoxian, you are always busy with official business. How can you have time to manage the team? Why don't you tell me the training methods and tactics? I will help you train them. How about it? You? Li Zishuan looked at Ching Chumo and said disdainfully. Ching Chumo suddenly exploded. What's wrong with me? Xiaoxian, Kushirqin can go to Sichuan to help you open the mines. What's wrong with me, your brother, helping you manage the team? It is said that playing football is like fighting a war. My father has fought in wars for so many years. As his son, I know a little about the art of war, right? Isn't it more than enough to help you manage the team? Li Zishuan was so angry that he almost laughed. He thought to himself, how dare you say that you know the art of war? Besides, who said that people who know the art of war can definitely manage the team well? What kind of logic is this? Li Zishuan wanted to refuse, but he thought that since Ching Chumo was not interested in the academy's courses, it would be good to arrange something that he liked to do. After thinking for a moment, Li Zishuan said, I originally wanted Jing Qianjun to help me train the team, but since you also have the same idea, then you two will be responsible for it together. Usually, Jing Qianjun is in charge of the team's tactical training, and you are in charge of the team's physical training. At the crucial moment, Li Zishuan, the experienced driver, made a big turn and almost choked Ching Chumo to death. What the F***, Xiaoxian, I thought you wanted me to be in charge of the team. I didn't expect you to arrange an assistant for me. You obviously don't trust me. Ching Chumo looked like he was wronged. Li Zishuan could not help but say in a strange voice, It's time to make the keys. 10 coins for 3 keys. Are you worthy, Chumo? No, Ching Chumo did not understand. He subconsciously wanted to say that he was not worthy, but then he felt that something was wrong and quickly shut his mouth. Yuchi Baolin came back to his senses and laughed. Ha ha ha. Brother Chou Nyo is not worthy. Jing Yinhong's Wind and Thunder team contained more than half of Jing Qianjun's efforts. Jing Qianjun loved football very much and was also very good at studying. That was why the Wind and Thunder team was now the hot favorite to win the championship. Jing Qianjun was in charge of the tactical training of the national team, and Ching Chumo was in charge of the physical training of the national team members. The combination of one civil and one military was really complementary. In addition, this morning, Jing Qianjun brought good news to Li Zishuan. The second batch of tea leaves had arrived in Chang'an City. The first batch of tea leaves was rushed, and the tea master in Jiangnan was not good at producing tea leaves, so the first batch of tea leaves was only about 50 kilograms. The tea leaves distributed to the members of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce were even less. But the second batch was different. Zheng Yinhong directly sent people to deliver 600 kilograms of tea leaves. Even if they had to give out a portion, Li Zishuan would still get a lot. Perhaps it was time to use the divine tea to make the Department of Commerce famous. At the same time, let the merchants of Lantian County enjoy the convenience and benefits of the Department of Commerce. Chapter 1408. The next day. Boss Wang? What did you say? Immortal tea is on sale? Can merchants like us buy it? Of course it's true. This is the latest news I got. As long as you're a merchant in Lantian County, you can buy a caddy of immortal tea from the Drunken Immortal Inn with the store contract. That's a caddy of immortal tea. You can't buy a tael of it no matter how much money you have. Brother Bai, if you don't hurry up, you won't be able to buy it soon. What? A caddy of immortal tea. Brother Wang, wait for me, I'll go get the store contract. Wait, how much is a caddy of immortal tea? It's not expensive. Only 60 Tang yuan. Brother, hurry up. Okay. I'll be right there. If it was in the past, if someone said that a caddy of immortal tea was 60 strings of coins, this merchant named Bai would definitely slap that person to death. But now, although he also felt that it was expensive, a caddy of immortal tea was 60 strings of coins. A tael of immortal tea was 6 strings of coins, and 1 tael of immortal tea could be used to make 10 cups. If he was stingy, he could make 12 cups. In other words, a cup of immortal tea was at most 300 copper coins, 800 copper coins, or at least 200 copper coins. This was a free gift. Previously, the Drunken Immortal Inn launched a limited edition event where one could taste a cup of immortal tea for free after spending 10 strings of coins in the inn. This attracted countless tycoons who loved tea leaves to fight for it. Back then, Boss Bai also went to the Drunken Immortal Inn to taste it. Although he felt a little heartache at the time, after tasting the immortal tea, he felt that it was worth it and was very satisfied. Only after tasting the immortal tea would one understand that the tea leaves they drank before were all rubbish. Once one drank the immortal tea, it was easy to get addicted to it, especially for those who loved the tea ceremony. If they didn't drink the immortal tea for a day, they would feel as uncomfortable as a cat scratching their heart. Unfortunately, Mr. Bai belonged to this kind of people. For this reason, he went to the Drunken Immortal Inn 5 times. In the end, he felt that if he continued drinking like this, the profits of his shop would be gone for a few months, so he could only reluctantly give up. After all, every visit to the Drunken Immortal Inn cost at least 10 strings of coins. Even if he had some money, he couldn't afford to waste. Now that he heard that the Drunken Immortal House was going to sell immortal tea for only 60 strings of coins per caddy, how could Boss Bai not be tempted? If he bought the tea back, he would be able to earn some money even if he sold it directly to merchants from other states and counties. If he set up a high-class tea house to sell the brewed tea, he would be able to earn even more. After all, with the current popularity of the immortal tea and its reputation as a tribute tea, as long as a tea house released the immortal tea, even if it cost 500 copper coins a cup, there would definitely be many people coming to snatch it. This was a sure-win deal. Shopkeeper Liu, why can't we buy it? Are you afraid that we won't pay? That's right. Why could only the merchants of Lantian County buy it? Everyone is giving money. What's the difference? Yes. Shopkeeper Liu, if you feel that 60 strings of coins per caddy is too cheap, you can totally raise the price. Why restrict only the merchants of Lantian County to buy it? Outside the Drunken Immortal restaurant branch in the county seat of Lantian County, in addition to the endless stream of diners, there was also a hubbub of merchants from all walks of life. Many of these merchants were not from Lantian County. They just happened to hear that the Drunken Immortal restaurant was going to sell immortal tea when they were watching the game in Lantian County, so they immediately came over. Obviously, there were many tea enthusiasts like Boss Bai who had tasted the immortal tea and were crazy about it. But who would have thought that the drunken immortal inn would actually set a rule that the tea leaves would be given priority to the local merchants of Lantian County? How could those merchants who rushed over to snatch the tea endure this? Therefore, they all started arguing with shopkeeper Liu of the Drunken Immortal Inn. This shopkeeper Liu was the same shopkeeper Liu of the Drunken Immortal Inn in Chang'an City. Now, not only did the Drunken Immortal Inn open many branches, but Li Zixuan had also become the marquis of 10,000 households and was given the fief of Lantian County. Shopkeeper Liu, the shopkeeper of the Drunken Immortal Inn's main branch, voluntarily requested to be transferred to the branch in Lantian County. As for the Drunken Immortal Inn in Chang'an City, it was taken over by a branch shopkeeper recommended by shopkeeper Liu. Actually, this was where shopkeeper Liu was smart. He knew very well that the place where Li Zixuan was could be called the main branch of the Drunken Immortal Inn. Now that Li Zixuan had been living in Lantian County for a long time, the name of the Drunken Immortal Inn in Chang'an City basically existed in name only. Moreover, Lantian County had now completely become Li Zixuan's territory, so shopkeeper Liu felt more at ease staying here. Everyone, be quiet. I have a few words to say. Faced with the siege of so many foreign merchants, shopkeeper Liu had no choice but to come out and maintain order. He first shouted loudly, and when everyone quieted down, he quickly smiled and cupped his hands, saying, "Dear guests, our Drunken Immortal Inn does not have much stock for this batch of immortal tea, so we will give priority to the shop owners in Lantian County. This can be considered as my marquis taking care of the merchants in Lantian County. I know that you are unhappy, but the amount of immortal tea is still too little. My marquis just wants to give some favors to the people in his fief. Whether it is the farmers, the craftsmen, or the merchants, they are all the people in my marquis fief. Marquis will treat them equally. Recently, Marquis has been building canals and water wheels for the people. Now, Marquis just wants to use the immortal tea to bring some benefits to the merchants in his fief. I hope that you can understand. I know that all of you like immortal tea very much, but I ask that you wait patiently. Soon, when the production of immortal tea increases, the various strange taste pavilions will start to provide it. When that time comes, you can buy as much as you want." Cough cough, shopkeeper Liu's words contained a lot of personal information. Many of them were taught to him by Li Zixuan. As soon as shopkeeper Liu finished speaking, the faces of the merchants below were filled with annoyance. So that's how it is. Marquis treats the merchants in his fief so well. I really admire him. Sigh. So there are such benefits to opening a shop in Lantian County? If I had known, I would have bought 2 shops in Lantian County last year. Hey, brother son, it's not too late for you to buy now, right? Too late, too late. Now that the prices of the shops in Lantian County have risen so high, I can't afford to buy even if I want to. The merchants from other places sighed and were annoyed. The native merchants in Lantian County could not help but want to clap their hands and celebrate. Ha! Marquis is benevolent and righteous. Luckily, I had foresight. At the beginning of the year, I came to Lantian County to open a shop. Ha ha! That's right, that's right. Marquis treats us the same way he treats the commoners. It's so rare. I will stay in Lantian County to do business in the future. I won't go anywhere else. That's right, that's right. I can only hope that such good things will happen a few more times. It will. It will. It'll be best if Marquis can chase away all the hooligans in the market. Since shopkeeper Liu had said so, and there were many shop owners in Lantian County supporting shopkeeper Liu, the merchants from other places, although they were unwilling, they could not say anything. They could only silently retreat to the back of the crowd. As for the local merchants in Lantian County, they happily lined up in a long queue, preparing for the big red packet that Li Zixuan would give to all the merchants in the county. Of course, there were also many smart merchants from other places who stayed behind the queue. After the people in front had finished buying the celestial tea, they went up to ask for a higher price. In other words, after the local merchants in Lantian County bought the celestial tea, they did not have to waste time and effort to resell it in other counties. They could just sell it to the surrounding merchants and make a small profit. In this world, there was no easier way to earn money than this. However, there was no free lunch in this world. Gains and losses were often balanced. With gains, there must be losses. While the merchants in Lantian County were enjoying the big red packet banquet, they had unknowingly fallen into the gentle trap that Li Zishuan had set up. When they realized it, they could not bear to come out. They would rather stay in the trap and be tricked than come out. As Lantian County's drunken immortal tower was selling large quantities of celestial tea, it led to many temporary tea houses in the county. The so-called temporary tea houses were in the original shops, temporarily separated into a small room, specially used to invite guests to drink tea. There was a tea house in the silk shop, a tea house in the porcelain shop, and even a coffin shop. They had actually set up a temporary tea house. As for the price of the celestial tea, the bosses with a little conscience would generally sell a cup of tea for more than 400 coins. As for the cruel bosses, they would directly raise the price of the celestial tea to about 500 to 600 coins. Because these people knew very well that although Drunken Immortal Tower sold a lot of celestial tea today, they certainly did not have the ability to sell so much in the short term. In other words, the market stock of celestial tea was so small. When the slightly lower-priced celestial tea was sold out, the customers could only buy the high-priced celestial tea in their shop. It didn't matter if it was 400 coins per cup or 500 to 600 coins per cup. In any case, it was much more direct and practical than the Drunken Immortal Towers. Spend 10 strings of coins to get a cup of celestial tea activity. Moreover, celestial tea was a rare imperial tribute tea. Was 400 coins per cup really expensive? Last year, a plate of chicken in Drunken Immortal Tower cost 10 strings of coins. At least this price was completely affordable for those petty bourgeois families. Therefore, on the first day, nearly 1,000 diners tasted the legendary celestial tea. And for those who had tasted the celestial tea, none of them said it was good. Through word of mouth, the reputation of the celestial tea exploded, and a storm of celestial tea quickly swept through Lantian County. Diners from Chang'an City and the surrounding counties also came for the tea, just to taste a cup of celestial tea. Because in the entire Tang Dynasty, only Lantian County had the largest stock of celestial tea. Even Chang'an City was far from it. However, no matter how much stock there was, if there were only sales and no sales, the stock would be depleted sooner or later. 5 days. Only 5 days had passed. Under the crazy consumption of tens of thousands of diners in Chang'an City and the surrounding counties, the celestial tea stock of Lantian County's merchants was completely sold out in just 5 days. Those Lantian County merchants who were queuing up to receive the celestial tea had all earned a fortune. After consuming the celestial tea, they also went to Drunken Immortal Tower to look for shopkeeper Lu, wanting to buy more celestial tea. However, shopkeeper Lu had no stock at all, so naturally, he couldn't take out any extra celestial tea. However, shopkeeper Lu promised them that when the next batch of celestial tea arrived, he would still give priority to the merchants of Lantian County. The merchants were naturally grateful to shopkeeper Lu and Li Zishuan. However, they didn't notice that after they left, shopkeeper Lu's lips curled into a sweet smile. The next day, the constables of Lantian County were all dispatched, and at the most eye-catching places in Lantian County, as well as at the city gates, they posted a notice about the establishment of the Department of Commerce in Lantian County. From today onwards, all merchants, farmers, and craftsmen in Lantian County will be classified as commoners, and the government will treat them equally. Within Lantian County, there will only be commoners and scholars in the future. The children of merchants can also enter the county school and enroll in Yanhuang College. In order to allow the merchants to receive fair and just treatment, Lantian County's County Yamen followed the Yong and Marquis order and officially established the Department of Commerce today. The Department of Commerce specializes in handling disputes between merchants, and its goal is to protect the merchants' private and legal property from being infringed upon, creating a good business environment for the merchants of Lantian County. When any merchant's interests are threatened by others, they can report to the Department of Commerce in Lantian County, and the officials of the Department of Commerce will handle it impartially. In addition, the Department of Commerce will also be responsible for collecting business tax from the merchant. From next month onwards, Lantian County's business tax ratio will be changed from 1 out of 30 to 1 out of 6. All merchants in Lantian County must report their profits for the month to the Department of Commerce before the end of each month. From the total profits, 1 out of 6 will be used as business tax. In order to prevent merchants from underreporting or even evading taxes, the Department of Commerce will organize personnel at the beginning of each month to conduct a spot check on the accounts of the merchants in the county. Once found, they will be punished with 5 times the total amount of tax evaded or evaded, and will be listed as a target of focus. Any merchant who evades taxes 3 times will be directly expelled from Lantian County, and will never be allowed to return to Lantian County to open a shop. Hiss! After the merchants in Lantian County finished reading the County Yamen's announcement, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Then, the merchants could not help but discuss among themselves. What? The business tax ratio has been changed to 1 out of 6? Such a heavy business tax is extremely rare even if you flip through the history books. Why is County Magistrate he so ruthless towards us merchants? Yeah. When I saw the beginning, I thought that the County Yamen was thinking for us merchants, but when I saw the end, I realized that the County Yamen wants to suck our blood. Isn't that so? 1 out of 6 of the total profits for the month as business tax. How are we going to live? You can't say that, right? At least in Lantian County, the status of us merchants has become higher, and our sons can even go to the county school. You have to know that in this county school, there will occasionally be teachers from Yanhuang College who come to give lectures. We can't get this kind of opportunity in other counties even if we beg for it. That's right. But this 1 out of 6 business tax ratio is still too heavy. In my opinion, it's not heavy. Didn't you see the announcement that as long as someone endangers our interests, we can report to the Department of Commerce, and the officials of the Department of Commerce will deal with it impartially? Just based on this point, it's much better than other places. In the future, if someone comes to the shops to cause trouble or collect protection fees, we can directly go to the officials of the Department of Commerce for help. This way, our monthly expenses might be less than before. That's right. That's indeed the case. I just don't know if the Department of Commerce is willing to completely clean up those ruffians in the market square. Chapter 1409. The establishment of the Department of Commerce caused a huge uproar in Lantian County. The merchants were all discussing about the new business tax ratio. Most of them were against it. After all, it used to be 1 out of 30, but now it was 1 out of 6. This was a 5 times increase. The merchants found it hard to accept at that moment. But there were also a small number of merchants who agreed. The main reason was that when the government increased the business tax ratio, it also raised the social status of the merchant. Spending money to buy recognition was a good deal in the eyes of the far-sighted merchants. Other things aside, just the preferential policy of allowing the children of merchants to study in the county schools was enough to offset the increase in business tax. Whether it was modern or ancient times, which parent didn't want their children to succeed? Studying was a very good way to stand out. But ever since the rise of the social hierarchy, merchants had always been looked down upon. During the Sui and Tang dynasties, the children of merchants were not allowed to enter government schools or take part in the imperial examinations. This completely blocked the future of the children of merchants. Today, Lantian County treated merchants as commoners on equal footing with farmers. Furthermore, they allowed the children of merchants to study in the county school. This county school was rebuilt by Li Zishuan after he took over Lantian County, spending a lot of manpower and resources. The curriculum within was infinitely close to the engineering taught by Yanhuang Academy. In other words, students in the county school had a higher chance of enrolling in Yanhuang Academy in the future than students outside. This was undoubtedly a fatal temptation to those merchants who wanted their children to succeed. Apart from that, if it was only in terms of monetary gains and losses, although the new business tax law required the merchants to pay more business tax, but the government was willing to protect the legal property of the merchants. This meant that in the future, if they encountered a situation where the local ruffians demanded protection fees, the merchants could request the Department of Commerce to step in and deal with it. In this way, the monthly expenses of the merchants in Lantian County did not increase. Instead, it might decrease. It was equivalent to handing over the protection fees to the Department of Commerce, the official organization that managed the merchants. But many people were doubtful of the government's determination to deal with the local ruffians. This was the reason why most of the merchants were unwilling to support the new business tax law. The strange thing was, the government seemed to know what the merchants were thinking. That afternoon, a large group of Lantian County Yamen bailiffs, led by over 10 personal guards of the Marquis of Eternal Peace's Marquis household, left the county Yamen and headed straight for Taikang Market in the southwest of the county. The fuse was that a merchant in the market had reported to the authorities that he had encountered a local ruffian named Lai San who had come to extort protection fees. At the same time, the 4 city gates of Lantian County were all closed. Only people were allowed to enter and not leave. Combined with the actions of the county Yamen constables, the answer was obvious. As the saying goes, justice has a long arm, but nothing escapes. Under Li Zishuan's instructions, county magistrate he finally gave the order that all the dark, evil forces in Lantian County would be wiped out today. As for the closing of the 4 city gates, it was just to catch a turtle in a jar and prevent those ruffians from escaping the city. General Liu, this son, has already investigated Lai San's background. He is a subordinate of Jin Wanbiao from Taikang Market. This Jin Wanbiao used to be a government soldier in his early years and is good at using knives and sticks. He is a ruthless character and has over 50 ruffians working for him. They call themselves the Golden Stone Gang. In the past, the Golden Stone Gang relied on helping merchants from other places to make a living. But ever since the number of merchants in Lantian County increased, Jin Wanbiao had his eyes on this fat piece of meat in the city. Every month, he would send people to collect protection fees from all the merchants on the south street of the market. If anyone didn't pay, he would cause trouble every few days and make it impossible for them to do business. If a merchant reported to the authorities, his revenge would be even more vicious. If it was light, he would beat them up. If it was heavy, he would send people to burn down their shop. A few months ago, a cloth shop in the market caught fire, and it was done by Jin Wanbiao's subordinates. Constable Sun Qing of the Lantian County government walked beside Lu Feng. As they walked, he carefully reported to Lu Feng about the power behind Lai San. Ever since he knew that Li Zishuan planned to recruit 3 more teams of Yamen runners and deal a heavy blow to the public security and business environment of Lantian County, Constable Sun began to seriously investigate the source of the disaster in the market. He had been waiting for this day. This kind of villains who use their strength to commit crimes and bully the weak do not deserve to be called a government soldier of the Tang Empire. After listening to Sun Qing's report, Lu Feng couldn't help but snort coldly. He then asked doubtfully, "This Jin Wanbiao has been committing crimes for so long. Could it be that county magistrate he can't do anything to him? Constable Sun smiled bitterly. General Liu, you don't know. Jin Wanbiao's subordinates are very stubborn. Even if they were caught by us, they would never admit that they were ordered by Jin Wanbiao. Moreover, Jin Wanbiao himself is very cunning. When he does something bad, he will not leave any evidence behind. Without evidence, the county government can't just casually arrest people. This is because it's said that one of Jin Wanbiao's good brothers is a lieutenant of the left guard. What's there to be afraid of a mere lieutenant of the left guard? Lu Feng glared with disdain. After all, he was a commander of the Imperial Guards. The Imperial Guards were the personal guards of the Emperor. They had their own pride. Naturally, he wouldn't care about a lieutenant of the left guard. After a pause, Lu Feng continued. Before we came, Marquis told me that as long as there is no evidence, we can directly arrest people who have caused trouble in Lantian County. After we return, we can slowly interrogate them. We must return Lantian County a clear sea banquet and a bright world. If there are any criminals who dare to resist, kill them all. Yes, sir. As soon as he finished speaking, the dozen or so personal guards of the Marquis residence who followed Lu Feng all loudly acknowledged the order. At this moment, Constable Sun could clearly feel that the surrounding air had become much colder. Murderous aura. This was a murderous aura. Constable Sun and the others had been constables in the Yamen for more than 10 years. Although they had seen dead people, when it came to killing people, they hadn't experienced it that many times. Naturally, they were far inferior to Lu Feng and the other Imperial Guards who had walked out of mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Boss, not good. The people from the county government are coming here to kill us. At Taikong Square in the southwest of Lantian County, a hooligan hurriedly ran into a large courtyard and anxiously reported to the scar-faced man who was hugging a beautiful concubine and enjoying the shade under a tree. What? When the scar-faced man heard this, he pushed away the beautiful concubine in his arms and stood up with a whoosh. He looked at the hooligan and said, "You're saying that the constables from the county government are coming here? Which blind dog complained about us to the county yamen? Find out who it is and burn his shop." This scar-faced man was Jin Wanbiao. Back then, he had also been a government soldier and fought in wars. However, because of a leg injury, he had retired from the military camp. At first, his life was rather poor. Later on, he realized that with his ferocious looks and decent martial arts skills, he could earn quite a bit of money by helping some merchants escort goods. Thus, he gathered a few fighters who knew a little about martial arts and started this business together. This was a bit like the escort agencies of the later generations. However, human greed could never be satisfied. Jin Wanbiao later realized that this business was still too slow to make money. Thus, he started a business of collecting protection fees from merchants. In his opinion, this business was actually no different from helping others escort goods in the past. It was all about the merchants spending money to ensure their safety. A few months ago, Lantian County held a football league tournament. Various shops opened like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. Lantian County became the most prosperous county in the surrounding counties of Chang and City. Jin Wanbiao saw a business opportunity in this and brought a group of underlings to enter Lantian County and started collecting protection fees. Relying on his ruthless way of doing things, he quickly earned a lot of money. His place of residence was also changed from the original dilapidated courtyard to the current luxurious courtyard. Moreover, he was able to have a beautiful wife by his side to serve him, which made Jin Wanbiao feel that he had walked to the peak of life. However, he didn't know that this pinnacle of life was actually the end of the road. The hooligan's face was bitter as he said, "Boss, it's not just the constables from the county government. I saw that Constable Sun had more than 10 martial arts experts by his side. Looking at their armor, they seemed to be the Ho Fu's personal guards." The Ho Fu's personal guards. Jin Wanbiao's face instantly turned ghastly pale. Although he had some martial arts skills, this little bit of skill was enough to bully ordinary people, but it was completely insufficient to deal with the personal guards of the Marquis's household. After all, he also knew that among the Ho Fu's personal guards, many were from the Imperial Guards. Jin Wanbiao wasn't arrogant enough to go against the Imperial Guards. Retreat. Retreat quickly. Jin Wanbiao's expression changed. He instantly made a decision in his heart. He hurriedly ran into the house and hugged all his assets, a box of Tang Yuan, in his arms and prepared to escape through the door. Speaking of which, he had to thank Li Zixuan for introducing Tang Yuan back then to replace copper coins. Otherwise, with his current wealth, if it were to be converted into copper coins, 10 carriages wouldn't be able to carry them all. If it were to be converted into gold, it would probably be enough for him to carry. It was absolutely impossible for him to escape with the money in a short period of time. Our great gang leader Jin, where are you planning to go? Coincidentally, just as Jin Wanbiao was planning to escape, Lu Feng led Constable Sun and the others in breaking down the door. Seeing Jin Wanbiao hugging a red sandalwood box, Lu Feng said with a hint of mockery. When Lu Feng entered Taikang Square, he discovered a wretched man who immediately ran towards this yard upon seeing them. He guessed that the man might be reporting to Jin Wanbiao, so he hurriedly ordered them to speed up. That was how they managed to arrive before Jin Wanbiao escaped. Surround them all. Don't even let a fly escape. Constable Sun waved his hand at the Yamen runners behind him and shouted loudly. Currently, the number of Yamen runners in the county Yamen had increased to 180 people. Compared to the previous 50 people, it had more than tripled. This time, he brought more than 100 people with him. In addition to the Imperial Guard experts that Lu Feng brought along to hold the line, Constable Sun finally had the confidence to face off against Jin Wanbiao and the others today. General, Constable Sun, what's the meaning of this? I've always abided by the law and have never done anything evil. Why did you bring so many people here? In the blink of an eye, all the members of the Golden Stone Gang in the courtyard were surrounded by bailiffs with weapons in their hands. Jin Wanbiao couldn't help but turn pale. He stiffened his neck and forced himself to look at Constable Sun and Lu Feng as he spoke. Lu Feng didn't care about a small fry like Jin Wanbiao at all. He couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Jin Wanbiao. He directly said coldly, Golden Stone Gang members are suspected of disrupting the law and order of Lantian County and extorting protection fees from merchants. Arrest all of them and escort them back to the county Yamen for trial. Anyone who resists will be punished. Killed. Not killed. The words, kill without mercy, came out of Lu Feng's mouth. It was especially imposing, and also especially cold and threatening. The hooligans in the yard were all people who bullied the weak and feared the strong. They had never seen a proper soldier like Lu Feng, who exuded a murderous aura. When they felt the air suddenly turn cold, the Golden Stone Gang members were so scared that they wet their pants. Those who had weapons in their hands quickly put them down. Those who didn't have weapons quickly raised their hands and knelt on the ground to beg for mercy. When Jin Wanbiao saw how cowardly his subordinates were, he couldn't help but burn with anger. However, he knew that now wasn't the time to lose his temper. He looked at Lu Feng and asked, General, the Golden Stone Gang members have always abided by the law. Even if there are a few people who have broken the law, the general should just arrest them. Why do you want to arrest all of us? You want to arrest all of us without any evidence. You're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong. Even though everyone knew that this was a very serious situation, when they heard Jin Wanbiao's words, they still couldn't help but want to laugh. Big brother, you're the leader of the hooligans, the boss of the gang. How can you say something so stupid? At that moment, Jin Wanbiao realized that he had said something that he shouldn't have in a moment of anger. His face instantly turned as red as a monkey's butt. Lu Feng tried hard to hold back his laughter. With a straight face, he snorted coldly and said, "I don't need any evidence to arrest you. If you don't agree, you can go to the county jail and let the county magistrate decide. Now, either you come with me or you die. You have no choice." Domineering. Only now did Jin Wanbiao realize that there was someone who was even more domineering and unreasonable than him. When a bully met someone who was even more domineering than him, the feeling was simply too bitter. "General, please calm down. I'll go back with you." Jin Wanbiao gritted his teeth. He struggled in his heart. Several times, he wanted to directly resist, but in the end, his rationality prevailed over his impulse. This was because he knew very well that in this situation, if he stubbornly resisted, it would be no different than courting death. He might as well go back with them to the county office. After all, the crimes he had committed were not enough to warrant the death penalty. "Humph! Tie them all up and take them away." Lu Feng snorted coldly. He released his hand from the hilt of his saber and gave Jin Wanbiao a look that said, "At least you know your place." "Yes, General Lu." A group of Yamen runners quickly took out the ropes that they had prepared and began to tie up the Golden Stone gang members. "Constable Sun, who's the next target?" After arranging for more than 30 Yamen runners to escort the Golden Stone gang members back to the county office, Lu Feng looked at Sun Qing and asked calmly. "General Lu, the next target is the Vast Sea Gang. Their gang leader is called Xiao Haitian. He's in charge of collecting protection fees for the shops on North Street. Let's go to the Vast Sea Gang." Chapter 1410. Hey! Have you heard? The Jinsher gang in the southwest of the county was wiped out by the county government's bailiffs yesterday afternoon. What? Has Jin Wanbiao been caught? Caught. I heard that all 58 members of the Jinsher gang have been locked up in the county government's prison. That's great. The Jinsher gang has done all kinds of bad things. Jin Wanbiao is even more brutal. Who knows how many merchants have been blackmailed by him? They should have been locked up long ago. Do you think that county magistrate he didn't want to catch Jin Wanbiao before? Isn't there no evidence then? What? There's evidence now? Hey! It's different this time. The one leading the team this time isn't Constable Sun from the county government. It's the Ho Fu's personal guards. Even if Jin Wanbiao had 10 times the guts, he wouldn't dare to say anything. Whoa. Looks like Marquis can't stand these bullies anymore. Isn't that so? I heard that the Shanghai gang in the north of the county was wiped out yesterday afternoon. Although their gang leader, Xiao Haitian, isn't as despicable as Jin Wanbiao, he still collected protection fees from many merchants. It's not just that. Other than these two gangs, many of the hooligans in the county were locked up yesterday afternoon. I have a nephew who works in the county government. I heard from him that the county government's prison cells are overcrowded. Officer who is in charge of these prisoners, didn't sleep a wink last night. Whoa! That's too exaggerated. Looks like Marquis really did make a move. Otherwise, no one would have such powerful means to capture all the hooligans in Lantian County in one fell swoop. No wonder yesterday afternoon, the 4 city gates of Lantian County were suddenly closed. Marquis wanted to get rid of these malignant tumors in the county. Now that these hooligans are gone, it feels like the security in the county is much better. Did you notice that there are a few more teams of bailiffs patrolling the streets today? I don't know if they're just patrolling for the past few days or they'll be patrolling in the future. If it's the latter, then there won't be any more hooligans extorting protection fees from merchants. Haha. What did I say yesterday? The establishment of the Department of Commerce by the county government is definitely a good thing for us merchants. Although they had to pay more business tax than before, without bullies like Jin Wanbiao and Hai Xiaotian extorting protection fees, the money saved was enough to pay the business tax. What's more, the merchants of Lantian County, other than being able to obtain priority supplies from the Yen Huang Chamber of Commerce, their children can also attend the county school. All in all, this is definitely a good thing. That's right. If he were to do business in other counties, he would also be blackmailed by bullies like Jin Wanbiao. His monthly expenses might not even be less than the expenses of running a shop in Lantian County. That's why I support the Department of Commerce from the bottom of my heart. Just based on the fact that the Marquis has dealt with the bullies in the city in one fell swoop and helped us vent our anger, I, Jean Fugue, will support the Marquis no matter what. Yes, yes, yes. We must support Marquis. The next day, the citizens of Lantian County, who had woken up early, could not help but gather in groups of 3 to 5 to discuss. The focus of the discussion was naturally the heavenly net operation in Lantian County yesterday. The merchants who were previously unhappy with the Department of Commerce and the new business tax law all changed their attitudes and began to praise the Department of Commerce. Quick, go take a look. The county government has put up a new notice. Coincidentally, at this moment, someone ran over and shouted, "You're too late." A new notice? It must have something to do with Jin Wanbiao and those bullies. Let's go. Let's go take a look. No one knew who shouted, but immediately, the merchants and citizens gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and walked quickly towards the county government. In front of the county government's notice board, there were already 20 to 30 citizens gathered. A scholar read as he read, "Members of the Golden Stone Gang and Vast Ocean Gang have been extorting merchants in the city for the past few months, demanding protection fees, and committing crimes such as assault and arson. After the county government's trial, the criminals confessed to their crimes. The county magistrate has decided to send these human traffickers to the mines to serve 3 years of their sentence. The leaders of the 2 gangs will be exiled to Jingzhou. From today onwards, if anyone dares to extort merchants again, the county government will punish them severely. In order to maintain the public order of the city square, there will be bailiffs patrolling the city square every day. At the same time, the patrols in the city will be strengthened. We must ensure that the merchants have a good business environment and that the citizens have a stable living environment." If one looked closely at the relevant laws of the Tang and Song dynasties, they would find that the longest prison term in these 2 dynasties did not exceed 3 years. In other words, criminals would only be sentenced to 3 years of imprisonment or less. Most criminals would only be sentenced to 2 years of imprisonment or less. The laws of the Tang and Song dynasties used 3 years as the upper limit of the prison term. There were 5 levels of punishment from 1 to 3 years. The reason why there were no longer prison terms was mainly because the population in ancient times was not as large as in modern times. Human resources were also not as worthless as in modern times. In this era, every person was a very precious labor force that was used to develop production and farming. Once criminals were detained for a long period of time, it would have a huge impact on the production of the entire society. Moreover, the prison term in this era could not only be used to lock the criminals in prison. These criminals would also have to complete a high degree of forced labor in addition to being detained. This method was roughly similar to the prison term and reform through labor in modern times. Therefore, the punishment given to the hooligans that were arrested yesterday was still very heavy. Great! This is great. In the future, no one in the city square will dare to collect protection fees. Marquis is really considerate of us merchants. This Department of Commerce is built well. That's right, that's right. In the future, we can be at ease and do business in a down-to-earth manner. Although the tax is too much, this old man is willing to pay. No. This old man also wants to buy a shop in Lantian County. Who has a shop and wants to sell it? The price is negotiable. After seeing the notice at the entrance of the county office, the citizens and merchants finally saw the determination of the county office to restore order in Lantian County. The merchants all heaved a sigh of relief and were even more elated. "Isn't that Boss Chow from Chang and City? Why did he bring so many cars with him? What's in those cars? Why don't we go and ask? Boss Chow is still very easy to talk to." While the crowd was discussing, they caught a glimpse of a carriage coming from the west side of the county office. The person in the lead was Chang and City's #1 cloth merchant, Chow Wendong. Seeing Chow Wendong bring so many carriages to Lantian County, the citizens at the entrance of the county office could not help but discuss. Naturally, there were bold busybodies who came forward to ask, "Boss Chow, what are you going to do with such a large group of people?" Chow Wendong did not put on airs as he chuckled and said, "Yesterday, I heard that Lantian County has established a Department of Commerce that treats merchants, citizens, and craftsmen equally. Furthermore, the children of merchants can attend the county school. This made me very excited, because with the Department of Commerce, we merchants will no longer be looked down upon and bullied. Hence, after thinking about it, I decided to completely move my family to Lantian County. Anyway, there are a few shops in this city that I can use to let my son enter the county school." Last year, before Yanhuang College was established, Chow Wendong had repeatedly sought out Li Zixuan, wanting the latter to establish a chamber of commerce and help merchants raise their social status. At that time, Li Zixuan rejected his request due to personal reasons. Later, Li Zixuan established the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce. Although Chow Wendong joined the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce, the status of merchants in society did not change. No matter where they were, merchants were lowly citizens who were despised by others. Now, Li Zixuan planned to establish a Department of Commerce in Lantian County, specifically to protect the status and interests of merchants in society. Furthermore, it was clear that there was no difference between the status and social status of merchants and citizens. After receiving the news, Chow Wendong was overjoyed. He quickly packed up and moved his family to Lantian County. After all, it could be said that Lantian County was the only, and possibly the last, pure land for merchants in Tang Dynasty. Only here could the merchants obtain fair and just social treatment and social status. Furthermore, they could obtain the opportunity to enter the county school. In Chow Wendong's opinion, these two things were good things that couldn't be exchanged with money. "What, Boss Chow? You want to move to Lantian County?" After hearing Chow Wendong's words, the merchants could not help but exclaim. Chow Wendong smiled faintly and said, "Why? Don't I look like it? This old man has already bought a mansion in Lantian County, in Yong An Lane. When the time comes, I can even become Marquis's close neighbor." "But Boss Chow, what about your cloth shop in Chang and City?" At this moment, someone asked again. Chow Wendong did not care and said, "Then just treat it as a branch. In the future, the Chow family's shop in Lantian County will be the main shop." When everyone heard this, they instantly looked at each other. In their hearts, they naturally categorized Chow Wendong as the rich and willful type of person. After all, although the commercial scale of Lantian County today was many times larger than before, compared to Chang and City, Lantian County was still far behind. Now that Chow Wendong was willing to treat the shop in Chang and City as a branch and move his entire family to Lantian County, he was really rich and willful. Now that most of the local ruffians in the city have been arrested, the Department of Commerce will officially begin to carry out its task. However, we must always pay attention to the public security in the city to prevent evil forces like Jin Wanbiao from reviving. After all, it was not easy to stabilize Lantian County. Once it becomes chaotic again, it will be really difficult to govern. At the back office of Lantian County, Li Zixuan said to the officials in the county office. Yesterday, it was indeed Li Zixuan's idea to let Lu Feng take the lead to help the county office arrest the ruffians. Although he did not manage to arrest all of the local ruffians in the city, the majority of them that he caught could at least have a deterrent effect. Those who escaped the net would not dare to cause trouble in the city anymore. Of course, the reason why he chose to rectify the public security in Lantian County at this time, other than to establish prestige for the Department of Commerce and let more merchants believe in the Department of Commerce, Li Zishuan also had a small selfish motive. That was, his family had now all moved to the Ho's mansion in Yong'an Lane, including Lan Er and Han Yushi. They had all moved over 2 days ago. Li Zishuan did not want those local ruffians in the city to affect his family. Although the people in the Ho's mansion would usually have attendants or guards when they went out, who could guarantee that they would have guards with them every time they went out? What if there were no guards and they met some ruffians who did not know their place? How bad would that be? Therefore, instead of being on guard all day and night, it was better to directly wipe out all the major evil forces in the city. This way, those small fries that had escaped the net would be quiet for a very, very long time, and would not have the chance to continue doing evil. This official will remember Marquis's teachings. County Magistrate, he cupped his hands towards Li Zishuan and replied. Li Zishuan nodded and asked again, "How is the construction of the canal in the county going? How is the installation of the water wheel going?" It was almost the middle of May. Looking at the weather that was getting hotter by the day, it was impossible for Li Zishuan not to be anxious. County Magistrate, he cupped his hands excitedly and replied, "Marquis, under the joint efforts of the county's citizens, the construction of the cement canal in our county is nearing completion. As for the installation of the water wheels at the various key points, there are less than 5 water wheels that have not been installed yet. It is estimated that by the day after tomorrow, the reservoir can be opened and the water can be checked to see if our canal and water wheels can operate normally." So fast? Li Zishuan raised his eyebrows and was very surprised. Counting the days, it had only been 10 days. A county cement canal was almost completed? This construction speed would make countless people in the modern era blush with shame. County Magistrate, he smiled and said, "Marquis, you may not know, but after the citizens of Lantian County knew that you had built a water wheel that could automatically move water, their enthusiasm for the canal construction immediately rose. Men, women, old and young, regardless of age, all joined in the construction of the canal. Even if they did not receive wages, those people were still willing to help with the canal construction. In addition, in order to rush the work, some villages even adopted a 2-shift system of working during the day and at night. It was because of the villagers of the various villages that the construction progress was so fast. The current situation was all thanks to the news on Tang Daily a few days ago. It had completely encouraged the citizens to build the canal. Compared to the number of people reported to the county government, the number of people building the canal was 3 times more than before. With so much enthusiasm and so many people accumulating strength to make the choice, Li Zishuan smiled with satisfaction and said, "Good. Very good. Once the canal is completed, immediately send someone to inform me. Time waits for no one. Our county needs to start watering the land as soon as possible." This official obeys. Librarian Hu, Constable Sun, County Deputy Meng, County Magistrate Wang, and Registrar Zhang all bowed and replied. Chapter 14:11. Young Master, this is the thin-walled glass bottle that you wanted. In the workshop of the Strange Interest Pavilion, Uncle Fu brought over a glass bottle that was spherical at the bottom and cylindrical at the top. The top part of the glass bottle was engraved with threads, which matched with an iron screw cap. When the cap was tight, it could ensure that the air outside the bottle would not enter the bottle. This was the main body of the light bulb that Li Zishuan wanted. Very good. Faubert, thank you for your hard work. Li Zishuan took the spherical glass bottle and looked it up and down, then smiled at Faubert. Hee. It's a piece of cake, no trouble at all. Faubert smiled faintly. Speaking of which, the glass manufacturing technology in the workshop had matured, and they could manufacture glass of all shapes and sizes. After hesitating for a moment, Faubert asked, I wonder what you intend to do with this glass bottle? Faubert was convinced by Li Zishuan's various strange ideas. Today, Li Zishuan suddenly took out a blueprint and asked him to help him make such a strange glass bottle. Faubert guessed that Li Zishuan must be up to something new. Sure enough, Li Zishuan smiled and said, Faubert, I intend to use this bottle to make a lamp that doesn't need oil or wax. It uses electricity to light it up, so I call it an electric lamp. That's right, Li Zishuan came over today to make an electric lamp. More than 10 days ago, he had promised Mo Huai that when the Ba River Dam in Lantian County was opened, he would make an electric appliance to check if the generator was generating electricity properly, and if the transformer was converting voltage properly. Now that all the canal construction and water wheel installation work in Lantian County had come to an end, he could not go back on his word. So, after leaving the county office, he went straight to the workshop to make an electric lamp. Electric lamp? Wow. Yamacho, you're finally going to make an electric lamp? At this moment, Mo Lingwei happened to pass by the corridor. After hearing Li Zishuan's words, she could not help but push the door open and enter, her face full of surprise. Unlike the old Faubert, Mo Lingwei, who was familiar with physics textbooks, naturally knew what the electric lamp that Li Zishuan mentioned was. Because she knew, she was so excited. Li Zishuan looked at Mo Lingwei, who had broken in the door and was speechless. He thought to himself, this girl is always so energetic. He did not know when she would become more ladylike. I'm going to make an electric lamp, what? Ink Girl is interested in this electric lamp? After a pause, Li Zishuan said, Yes, interested. Of course I'm interested. Previously, I heard from my dad that Yamacho, you were going to make an electric appliance when the generator was running. At that time, I guessed that Yamacho, you were definitely going to make an electric lamp. Mo Lingwei nodded excitedly, secretly congratulating herself for her good luck today. She did not miss such a good show. Li Zishuan smiled and said, Since Ink Girl is interested, stay and help me. Wei Er, where are you? At this moment, Yan Xiaoning's shout came from the corridor outside the house. Now that the work at the hydropower station had basically come to an end, the burden on Yan Xiaoning's body had become much lighter. Only then could he have time to wander around, and have time to be intimate with Mo Lingwei. Mo Lingwei could not help but frown when she heard Yan Xiaoning's shout from outside. She snorted a little angrily and did not answer. It seemed that this girl was probably angry with Yan Xiaoning. Faubert was old and experienced. How could he not tell that this young couple was quarreling? He shook his head and smiled and said, Young master, there are still some things to do at the steel mill. If there's nothing here, I'll go over. After saying that, he gave Li Zishuan an imperceptible look. Li Zishuan's heart skipped a beat and he quickly replied, Oh, Faubert, if you have something to do, go ahead. But don't tire yourself out. Faubert nodded and pushed the door open. Ink Girl, Xiaoning is calling you. Why didn't you answer? After Faubert left, Li Zishuan looked at Mo Lingwei and asked with a smile. That block of wood, whoever wants to talk to him can talk to him. I'm not going to talk to him. Mo Lingwei lifted her chin and snorted with her nose. She said in a bad mood. As soon as he finished speaking, the door was suddenly pushed open. Yan Xiaoning ran in and went straight to Mo Lingwei. He held the latter's hand and said, Wei Er, I'm wrong. Can you forgive me? Don't ignore me. Li Zishuan hurriedly turned around. See no evil, see no evil. In order to prevent these two from taking a step further and doing something out of line, he quickly coughed twice to indicate his presence. Mo Lingwei rolled her eyes at Pang Feiji and quickly pulled her hands back. She took 2 steps back and said, "Humph. Why are you still looking for me? I don't want to see you again. Go away." "Oh right, how did you know that I'm here?" How did he know? Faubert must have told him just now. Li Zixuan couldn't help but curse in his heart. It was said that a woman in love had a negative IQ. If it was in the past, Mo Lingwei would definitely not ask such a stupid question. Faubert used to be the manager of the Yen family's workshop. Needless to say, he had a good relationship with Yen Xiaoning. When he saw Mo Lingwei and Yen Xiaoning quarreling, Faubert couldn't just sit back and do nothing. He said that he had something to do just now, but in fact, he wanted to secretly inform Yen Xiaoning. Needless to say, Faubert had also learned bad things. "Where I said something wrong yesterday. I know that I'm wrong. Can you forgive me?" Yen Xiaoning took 2 steps forward and said to Mo Lingwei bitterly. "Humph. Don't you understand what I said? I don't want to see you again. Go away." Mo Lingwei's face was cold and she was still unmoved. Cough cough. "Ain't girl, you guys continue. I'll go next door and be the third wheel." As the saying goes, beating is a sign of affection and scolding is a sign of love. Although Mo Lingwei's words meant to keep Mo Lingwei at arm's length, Li Zixuan was an experienced person. How could he not understand that Mo Lingwei was actually full of affection for Yen Xiaoning? Li Zixuan didn't want to stay here and be the third wheel, so he could only go next door and be the third wheel in the laboratory. "Yamacho. I'll go too." Mo Lingwei heard and quickly chased after him. "I'll go too. Where, Xiaoxian, wait for me." Yen Xiaoning saw and chased after them. Li Zixuan, who was outside the room, couldn't help but stop in his tracks. He was speechless. He thought to himself, "Aren't these 2 clowns here to cause trouble for me? Xiaoning, Ink Girl, I can be the third wheel alone. You 2 don't need to come over and help. Just continue bickering." Li Zixuan turned around and looked at the group of lovebirds. He spread his hands and said helplessly, Who's bickering with him? I don't even know him." Mo Lingwei pouted and said angrily. Yen Xiaoning quickly said, "Xiao Xian, what are you talking about? Who's bickering? I'm on good terms with Wei Er. I heard that there's an opera troupe in the county. Shall we go and take a look later?" The son of the Minister of Works, a straightforward and ruthless technical geek, had now become a little bootlicker. It was really hard to fathom the fate of the world. Li Zixuan shook his head and walked towards the laboratory. He couldn't be bothered with these 2 anymore. "Humph. I'm not going. If you want to go, go by yourself." "Yamacho, wait for me." "Xiaoning, go and make 2 holes in this bottle cap. I've already drawn the positions of the holes. As for the size of the holes, you can just use the thickness of this screw." In the laboratory, Li Zixuan passed the cap of the previous glass bottle and a slender screw rod to Yen Xiaoning and instructed him. The workshop didn't have any lathes now, so the screw had to be polished manually. However, since the dam had been built, Li Zixuan might be able to try making all kinds of hydraulic lathes. As for electric lathes, it would probably be a long way to go. "Oh, no problem. I'll get it done right away." Yen Xiaoning took the bottle cap and screw and replied. Before he left, he turned to Mo Lingwei and said, "Wei I'm going to the workshop in the front yard. I'll be back in a while." "Okay." Mo Lingwei replied softly and didn't say anything else. Speaking of which, the 2 of them had the same hobby. They both liked to tinker with new things. Once they entered the working state, they would forget about other things. Therefore, Li Zixuan brought them here to be third wheels. In another way, it could be said that he was helping Yen Xiaoning. "Ink Girl, please cut a small section of this candle. It should be as thin as a pencil and as long as the joint of a pinky finger." Li Zixuan took out a candle and a small knife and handed it over. "Okay, Yamacho." Mo Lingwei didn't understand why Li Zixuan wanted to cut a candle, but she was smart enough not to ask. After all, the answer would come out in no time. At this time, Li Zixuan wrapped the middle section of the 2 screw rods with a thin rubber ring. After that, he used a pair of tweezers to hold the screw rods and roasted them over the flame of an alcohol lamp. The rubber ring softened quickly and stuck tightly to the middle section of the screw rods. After that, he took out a piece of charred bamboo wire and carefully fixed the 2 ends of the bamboo wire to the lower end of the screw rods with 2 nuts. At the same time, he bent the bamboo wire into a beautiful arc. At this time, Yan Xiaoning came back from outside. Xiaoxian, here, the bottle cap is done. Do you think it's okay? Yan Xiaoning handed over the bottle cap and screw rods and said. Li Zixuan took it and looked at it seriously. He nodded and praised, okay? Not bad. The thickness is just right. Looks like Xiaoning's skills haven't fallen behind. Yan Xiaoning said proudly, of course. In this workshop, other than Faubert and you, my skills are definitely the best. TSK. You're boasting shamelessly again. Why don't we have a competition later? Mo Lingwei rolled her eyes and attacked him mercilessly. She could temporarily put aside the conflict between them, but it didn't mean that she could tolerate Yan Xiaoning's boasting. Yan Xiaoning immediately became listless. He quickly remedied and said, haha, I was wrong just now. I should say that other than Faubert, Xiaoxian, and you, Wei my skills are the best in the workshop. Mo Lingwei snorted. Then, she handed the peeled candle in her hand to Li Zixuan and said, Yamacho, this is the small candle you wanted. Do you think the size is okay? Li Zixuan took it and smiled. Okay. It's perfect. Thank you, Ink Girl. Mo Lingwei glanced at Yan Xiaoning proudly and said, Did you hear that? It's not bad and it's perfect. Do you know the difference in your heart? She wanted to say, Do you know the difference in your heart? But then she felt that it would be rude to say that, so she removed the word. Ever since Li Zixuan told Qing Chumo on Arbor Day in March that he would like to plant a tree in your heart on Arbor Day next year, and the name of that tree would be the Force Tree. This phrase became popular in Yanhuang College. Sometimes, even the teachers in the college would say, Do you know the difference in your heart? When Li Zixuan found out about this, he felt very helpless. Qing Chumo was even more unlucky. He was often teased by people with this phrase. God knows how many people in the college had planted a tree in his heart. When Yao Jin heard about this, she was depressed. She even called Qing Chumo to the backyard and asked him why so many people wanted to plant a tree in his heart. This made Qing Chumo feel very awkward. He wished he could give Li Zixuan a good beating. However, he had to be able to beat Li Zixuan first. I know the difference in my heart. I know the difference in my heart. Yan Xiaoning quickly said when he saw Mo Lingwei looking at him. Li Zixuan sighed. All right. Now everything is ready. The lights will be ready soon. Hearing this, Mo Lingwei and Yan Xiaoning stopped bickering and turned their attention to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan put the screw that was connected to the carbonized bamboo wire through the 2 round holes on the bottle cap. Then, he got some rubber, melted it, and stuck it in the tiny gap between the hole of the bottle cap and the screw. This ensured that the bottle cap would remain sealed after it was placed on the glass bottle and would not leak any air. After doing all this, he lit the candle and dropped a few drops of melted wax on the bottle cap. Then, he pressed the candle against the few drops of wax to fix it. Then, he held the bottle cap in one hand and the glass bottle in the other. He quickly turned the bottle cap upside down and tightened it. The oxygen in the air in the bottle was quickly depleted. The burning candle was extinguished as well. This proved that there was no more oxygen in the bottle. Modern light bulbs were filled with inert gas, such as nitrogen, to prevent the filament from oxidizing. Li Zixuan didn't have the conditions to fill it with nitrogen, nor did he have the conditions to empty the air in the light bulb. Therefore, he came up with this simple and convenient method to remove the oxygen in the light bulb. The effect wasn't much different. Yamacho, I understand now. You're doing this to remove the oxygen in order to prevent the carbonized bamboo wire from burning due to the high temperature after it's electrified, right? Mo Lingwei was quick-witted. After seeing Li Zixuan's actions, she thought for a while and understood the key point. She couldn't help but be excited. Ink Girl's intelligence is outstanding. It's admirable. After the carbonized bamboo wire is electrified, it will indeed emit light and heat. I've experimented with this before. However, when the carbonized bamboo wire is electrified in the air, it will quickly burn out. So, let's see if it can continue to emit light for a long time without oxygen. Xiaoning, bring some batteries over. We'll test it immediately. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.